Here we go.
G'day fans and welcome back to another exciting episode of the old Rip It Off the Card. It's a Wednesday and it is slowly but surely getting a tad warmer, although you wouldn't know that from in the mornings because it's cold enough to freeze the pricks off a barbed wire fence and all the birds are dropping out of the trees. But in the afternoons it is quite pleasant, and I'll tell you one place where it's extremely pleasant all the time. It's at Aaron's store. Mr. Aaron, how you going, old son?
Oh, I'm tired. It's been a busy week and there was stuff on, so I'm just recovering. So I'm happy to be here hanging out with everyone and talking about nerdy things and collectibles. How about you?
I like it. You do that as a profession, your day-to-day job, and then after hours, you're hanging out with us doing exactly the same thing. So I'm very, very impressed, old son. You're a committed nerd. What can I say? Is that right?
Yeah, lots of people want to commit me, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, it's been a big week in the sci-fi world. The first thing I got to mention is that they dropped the trailer for the good old third season of Mandalorian. And sure enough, who's at the front of the image? The old cash cow himself. Absolutely, he's back. And I can hear the Disney cash register going chick-ching, chick-ching already. How good is that? What do you reckon of that? Is that just like unbelievably ridiculous or what?
I was particularly impressed by the Disney trailers this time around. There's not just The Mandalorian, but there's Werewolf at Night and Secret Invasion and the Tales of the Jedi and the Andor. I thought all of them look great.
Dude, none of those feature the cash cow except Mandalorian. So, I mean, if you ever watched our DNA reviews, we said they can't get rid of good old Grogu because he's the one who brings the money in for the show. They nick him off at the end of season 2, and clearly they said, oh, I can't do that. Bring him back. They bring him back in the Book of Boba Fett, and sure enough, he's back again in season 3. Yay, team! So, yes, exactly right. No, can't have poor old Disney / Lucasfilms to like squandering $1 or $2, thinking, oh, what have we done? That was a bad decision. Very good dramatically, but from the cash register side, a bad move. So, just quickly, I know you said you've been a very busy lad. How's everything tracking otherwise with the store? Anything we should be aware of? Anything that's really, really groovy going on?
Some stuff turned up from Ronnie we'll look at later, and then we've had some cool collectibles come through. We're in the middle of looking at 2 big collections at the moment where I don't know, going to go into your garage, isn't it, Dags?
Yeah, exactly right. Very, very cool. Carol, good to see Carol joining us from good old Ballarat. If you want to talk about cold weather, you got to go out there. Hooray for Grogu. Yes, the chick, he almost needs to have a cash register stuck on his back. So so when in Luke and the Empire Strikes Back carry Yoda on his back, now you got to have Grogu with a cash register on his back. So that's what it's all about. Now, last weekend, last Saturday, we've been promoting this for a little while. Was the old Star Walking banquet celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Empire Strikes Back and Raise the Lost Ark. Sure, it was a couple of years ago, COVID, yeah, bullshit. So we're just chucking a couple of happy snaps of the event itself. So because Aaron and I both went along, which was particularly cool. What? Do I want to, before we get started, do I want to explain myself being a shield for Paramount Plus? Oh, yes, if you're into Star Trek, you can see I did a bit of a quick promo for Paramount Plus and stuff that occurred for Star Trek Day on Thursday. So there you go. Yes, my ugly head made an appearance yet again. So thank you for bringing that up, DJ. So the banquet that Aaron and I went to, celebrating Raiders and the Empire Strikes Back, was very, very exciting. Got a couple of happy snaps. Sorry for the blurry pictures. These were sort of taken on phones and whatever. Now, the dude on the left, you might recognize him because, of course, he happens to be this guy. Yes, it's the Spankin, the real Spankin. And, of course, Spankin was the reason why this picture's here is he was responsible for making all the displays that night. We looked absolutely fantastic. And if you are wondering what this is up here, it was actually a lady dressed as Han Solo and the Tauntaun as well. That was pretty groovy, wasn't it, Mr. Aaron?
Yeah, that's a cosplayer I've known for a long time. Her name's Annika. So I think she won overall, didn't she?
Yes, she did. That's what she's holding there, the certificate. And if you're wondering about Spankin holding the idol is actually a Darth Vader helmet on top of the fertility idol from Raiders. So it was a mesh of the 2 genres. And, of course, that was auctioned off at the end of the night, which was particularly cool. And if you want to see some heads in the show, so you got the costume parade at the top, and one of our dedicated viewers, Mr. Colin, who's on the right hand side there, and he's also part of Austrek, so he was there for the Star Trek thing, and a couple of happy steps of people who were there at the time. What do you reckon there, Mr. Aaron?
That's a fantastic kind of overview of the night. There was cosplay, there was food, there was nerds, there was trivia, there was awards, there was a bit of everything.
Yeah, exactly right. It was a very, very cool. Oh, DJ's not happy. Explain yourself, sir. Well, there you go. What can I say? I've been involved with the Star Trek Club a lot longer than I've been involved with a Star Wars one, but it's all good. I spread myself around everywhere. What can I say? Nothing like a well spread dags in every corner of the nerdy world. So, yes, it was a very good night last Saturday. All cool stuff. So, Rusky Babes, how many dudes rocked up? I believe it was a sellout. A few people pulled out because they were ill. It was around the 60-ish mark, which is what the venue could hold. So, it worked out quite good. Anything you want to say about anything before we move on to something really exciting stuff, Mr. Aaron?
No, I think we've started the show with a bang. Let's head into it.
Very cool. I like this one. Bill and I are in SA, so you won't be watching yet. You've got on here to actually post that you're not watching. I love that one. So I love it when people turn up to say they're not turning up. Love the logic.
You turned up. It's too late. I do have one thing to say. Who won the trivia contest? We did.
We did. I tell you what, Star Wars nerds, there you go. You just got to come to us. We just knew everything. And Aaron, there was a tiebreaker between our table and another table. I asked this particular question. Aaron swung right around and said, I know the answer to that question. And that's what got us over the line. So, Aaron, legend as always. And if you're wondering what that tiebreaker question was, why did George Lucas pick Irvin Kershner to be the director of The Empire Strikes Back? So, there you go, kids. And you knew it because you were just a smart cookie. Is that right?
Yeah, I just watched too much supplemental material.
Yeah, exactly right. I love that. Yes, I am the human Vegemite. Make of that what you will. And yes, did I clean up my own spread? Yes, I leave that for the minions to worry about, which is particularly cool. I seem to be very complimentary of Star Trek Discovery. Actually, as it is, I actually do like Star Trek Discovery. I thought the first season was outstanding, actually, but I admit it's not for everybody. It's not everybody's cup of tea. But yes, I did actually like the first season. Second season was okay. Third, it was give or take. Anyway, we're going to move on. Otherwise, we'll never get stuff done. And of course, it's time to move on with a little bit of this. All right, Mr. Aaron, what are we talking about this evening?
Well, we've got a really diverse range of products to look at tonight. I give them to Dags. He does the slides. I'm not sure what order they're going to be spat out at, but let's have a look.
Yeah, well, it was very funny. We were talking about good old Star Trek a few moments ago, and good old Trek is coming up. The old Locutus of Borg, mate. What's the deal with this?
Now, we looked at the overall range of this earlier in the year, but now this one's pre-order and coming out, and they're the 12-inch figures that are coming out for all the different Star Trek eras. They're all under the same license, unlike the TV series, and they're putting out a 12-inch line that I think are right up there with some of the Hot Toys stuff. They're not done by Hot Toys, they're done by XO. I think Locutus of Borg is going to be one of the most popular ones, just because probably the most recognized story from Next Generation is Best of Both Worlds. Captain Picard is one of the most popular captains, and the Borg are the greatest enemies in Star Trek for a lot of people. So you put them all together and you release a toy of it, and it's going to be a sellout, isn't it? What do you think of this one, mate?
Yeah, I think they've done a good job. And like a lot of things, it's funny that it's taken decades for this thing to get released. But yeah, I thought it was actually quite groovy. And I do think that because Star Trek Day was last Thursday, and there's a comment here from DJ I'm going to get to in a second. I think they have, it looks very groovy. And I agree with you. Good old the Borg, and especially Locutus, was definitely a major impact in the show. And DJ said regarding Irvin Kershner, because Irvin Kershner was George Lucas's mentor at film school, wasn't it? There you go. If you're on our table, you too could have helped us win, but it was all good in the end. Yes, the Borg thing was very, very cool. You could almost do just a whole range of figures just for them of various types of Borg, and people would just go completely apeshit over it, which is very, very groovy. Ironically, Q Who, which was the Next Gen episode where the Borg featured for the very first time, was on TV just last week. So there you go. Blame Q. Huh?
There you go. Q Who.
Very, very cool. But if Borgs aren't floating your boat, the next thing you want to do is you want to get three-headed dragons, mate. Oh, how good's this?
I actually think you should be calling it Docky Q just to keep it like all in the...
Very good.
Here we go. So three-headed dragons. Yes, it is, of course, King Ghidorah, and this is the King Mecha Ghidorah version where it's got one robot head. So we usually report on the Godzilla stuff just because I like big monsters, and this one's extra cool because it's a big cyborg monster, half monster, half robot. When you look at the Godzilla line, they usually do a lot more Godzillas than other monsters, especially in the ones that are released locally. So when you get a big monster like this, if you haven't got it, it's worth tracking it down. As you can see, it's got a lot of harnesses and extra bits and pieces, two different versions of the wings, a battle-damaged one with holes in and a regular version. So quite a nice monster kaiju for people who collect that kind of thing.
And I do, as you've mentioned once before, the photography of the pictures makes the figure look better because the backgrounds look so neat. Regarding the Borg gear, resistance is futile. You will purchase this. Yes, totally agree with you. Colin says it looks awesome, and it does. And that's the thing about that. These days, as we've discussed once before, they have to look good. Anything that looks crap, people just go to bypass because the standard now is so high. Very, very groovy. Yes, Guy, another dragon. There's always room for more dragons. So there you go. Very, very cool. But this, of course, is to do in the Godzilla franchise. Now, the next thing that came out, we're going completely left field now. When this popped up on the screen, because Aaron sent me through the slides tonight, I go, oh, that is groovy. That is fantastic. Now, those people out there will be able to probably guess the show almost instantly if they can't. Rusky Babes, who's now finally back, I think he got kicked off Facebook for a little while for being too friendly with us, is now back. He should pick this straight away, but I couldn't work out what the episode was. But I know William Shatner was in it. It's obviously from, what's it from, Mr. Aaron?
Well, this is a 1-to-1 scale prop replica from the Twilight Zone. It's the Mystic Seer, which is, I guess, a fortune-telling device. And do you know what? In a Twilight Zone episode, when you mess around with a fortune-seeing device, weird shit is going to go down.
That's exactly right. And it was actually a William Shatner episode. And, of course, he gets, it's at a cafe, and he puts in the coin, and he's asked some questions. Oh, will I become rich? Will I become famous? And all the answers, as you can see from the card, are really ambiguous. And he gets really addicted to it because he's thinking this thing's going to predict the future for his life. And of course, it might work out that way. You could be successful. It's nothing's concrete. And of course, he just can't stop putting money in this machine to try and find answers about the future of his life. And the fact that they've done this is absolutely spectacular. But as soon as I saw it, I go, oh, that's Twilight Zone immediately. But I couldn't remember the episode. Nick of time. Thank you very much, of course. So well done.
Of course, it's not cheap. It's $299 American, because I thought the same as you. Oh, that is a very cool item that I wouldn't mind having. Maybe not for that much, because I would probably get killed. Interestingly enough, when you ask it, will I be famous? Will I be rich? The card just comes out saying, "Que sera, sera."
It needs to have the answer needs to say just Google the answer. So yeah, it's very cool that they've done this. Clearly it's going to have a very limited appeal to a very limited number of people, but the idea that they've done it, the fact that it's 1 cent, there'll be young people going, what's a cent? Because I'll have no idea what a cent happens to be. But I do love it, and it was an excellent episode of Twilight. This is the original Twilight Zone, from the 1950s, and William Shatner was the dude. So I love it. But yes, if you ever want to play with people's minds when they give you direct questions, you give them ambiguous answers, and it will do their head in. Isn't that right there, Mr. Aaron?
I don't know. Is it, Dags?
Very, very good. Here we go. He's on the fun factoids. We haven't had one of these for weeks. That was a real novelty machine in the 60s, not just a TV prop. Well, there you go. How good is that?
There you go. So you could actually find a real one, and it might even be cheaper than the prop replica.
Indeed. And Andrew said you got to get a Ronnie replica. What would a Ronnie replica of the 1 cent Mystic Seer look like, old son?
I'd love to see the Ronnie review for that. Do you love answers from Satan? Buy this replica. It has his head and all the answers. Something like that.
Exactly right. Yep. Love it. Very, very cool. I think the worst part would be you spending all your time trying to find 1 cent pieces everywhere. And of course, now all the coins have to change. Got to get rid of one person's head, put another head on it, and away we go. Well, speaking of things that are all happening, now, of course, it's time to sort of look at some things that are pretty horrible and disgusting. And, of course, whenever we think of horrible and disgusting, we automatically think of this.
Useless Pop of the Week!
All right, so once again, we're going to show you the pop, and you have to guess what it is, because we're going to show it to you outside of the box. What do you reckon that is?
Well, I have ideas what that was, and I kind of thought it was someone, and it wasn't who I thought it was, but I think it really does look like the person who I thought it was. Do you think it looks like the person I thought it was?
Well, when I realized you sent the picture later on that worked on the view that it's the person you thought it was, we're just bumbling our words here, but the jacket doesn't match. But no, I had no freaking idea what this was. So I like this one. Gavin's already said George. But when did George ever wear a motorcycle jacket like that? So yes.
The American Graffiti reunion or something like that.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, sorry, kids, it isn't George, even though you thought it was, and it certainly looks like him. It is, in fact, Clay Morrow. How exciting is this?
I know it's one of those bizarre things where really and truly, they could repack that as George Lucas having a discussion with John Dykstra. That's the expression. You let them film Battlestar Galactica or ILM. That's kind of the thing they're going for. But yeah, DJ got it. It is. I do think that is one of those ones where they can pop that head off, put it on a flannelette body, and resell it to Star Wars fans all over the planet.
I love the idea that there's in the production line, there's all these like minions in Asia, and they said, all right, your job is to pull the head off this character and stick it on this other body, right? That's their job. They're little, like, 6-year-old kids, in the sweatshop. They said we're popping. That's why they're called pops, because they got everything's interchangeable. You're just popping heads.
Well, do you know what they yell at the 6-year-old kids producing them? Faster, more intense, faster, more intense.
Just like that. So yeah, his Uncle George could have actually been there at this particular point in time. So do you reckon Anakin in this case is the 6-year-old, or in this case a 9-year-old minion popping heads off pops? What do you reckon?
That's the Mos Espa sweatshops right there. All of those doors are closed because there's Jawas inside, like forcing the younglings to put out Funko products. Obi-Wan's there to liberate Anakin. If Anakin goes without getting a proper release, his head explodes.
Absolutely love it. Hang on. The Viola said George Lucas' reaction to seeing Obi-Wan. I mean, this series? It looks mad. You're exactly right. DJ summed it up in 3 words. God, I hate pops. So that's 4 words. So, yes. Here we go. Rusky Babes has hit the keyboard, mate. He's typing War and Peace here. Look at this. Bobblehead pops were first sold in the 60s to put back in the back of the cars. That's sort of the thing, like the dangling Elvis and stuff. Reinvented a few years back to become a popular rubbish collectible they are today. I like that. Rubbish and collectible, that kind of doesn't go hand in hand when you sit and think about it. Is that right there, Mr. Aaron?
Yeah, I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think the first pops were sold as touristy things, and it was like Hawaiian hula dances and things like that.
Yeah. DJ's actually said, do they actually sell? Yes, there is a market for them, and people still buy them. Whether they still buy them as much as they did all those years ago when they were the in thing, I don't know. It's a hard one. I wouldn't be surprised if the market has kind of dropped off a bit. Not the production of them, but the buying of the people might say, I've already got everything I want. I don't need any more. So
it is there you go. The market for them has dropped off, but they still sell quite briskly.
Yeah, very, very cool. All right, good stuff. All right, now that was that's our useless pop of the week. I mean, had it been George Lucas, it probably would have been a really popular one, but it wasn't. It was from Sons of Anarchy, so in that case, then it was completely useless. All right, we're going to move along because something, as we discussed, has arrived from overseas. So let's get into it. All righty. I just realised there's a comment here. Gavin said a head bobbing digs, and then he said me. So he wants me to bob my head like that. Like, whatever.
You just look like Virgil Tracy when you do that, Dags.
Very, very cool. Andrew said 52 cents. You're way ahead of it. We're still 2 segments away before we get to eBay, Ange. So you better just settle down. Now you've got something that's turned up. Is that right there, Mr. Aaron?
Well, we've got a few things turned up. I haven't told you everything that's turned up, but here we'll go. We'll start at the start. You may remember a couple of weeks ago, last week I was a bit worried because the Book of the Dead turned up and I ordered it at the same time as this poster. And I said, well, usually if I get one of 2 items turn up, the other one just never, ever appears. So I was shocked that the next day a big roll turned up and it did have the poster of Vigo the Carpathian looking very butch, as they say in Ghostbusters, arrived.
So most people out there, based on the history of the items arriving looking nothing like how they originally ordered, you could probably say, well, okay, did like a picture of Donald Duck turn up, or it was something completely wrong? We shall find out, because this is what was ordered. Is that right there, Mr. Aaron?
Yeah, it was ordered. It cost me $13.07 Australian delivered. That was including postage. And I ordered the largest one possible. The smallest one was only about $4 delivered, but I didn't want one that was an A4 size because I just thought I'd get a photocopied piece of paper if I did that. So this is, it's not the same size as the original prop. I'd say it's about half the size of original prop. It's a good poster size.
Very good. So this is what was ordered. And what did you get?
Well, out of all the things we've ordered over the last 2 years on the show, this would have to probably be my favorite. It actually is really good. Now, it isn't exactly what I ordered because on the description it says it's a silk print. It isn't a silk print at all. It's on this. It's almost a plasticky mylar type material. But what that has actually done, the print on it that I thought was going to be dodgy is actually really thick and rich, and it actually looks like a painting. And what I'm going to try and do is go to a couple of op shops and find a frame like an old.
That's all value.
Sorry.
A premature poor value there. I'm going to go to an op shop and try and find an old ornate frame the same size and put it in it. And I think it would actually look quite stunning.
So just bear in mind, fans, now that we know that it costs $13 and Aaron's going to put it in a frame, stick it, no doubt, in the store, the capitalist dog will be sitting there going, oh, mate, wouldn't mind something to eat. Expect the price to go right up. So just to show a side-by-side comparison.
Now, I've got to say, there is a difference in the colors side by side, but I think that's actually my camera, not so much that it's different from the original that they've said. You can see in the original, they've got it sort of on a gallery in a room somewhere. I've stuck it on the fridge at the shop, and that gives you an idea of the size. It's the top half of the fridge, and it looks quite good there. And the good thing is the fridge has a light inside, so it actually looks like Vigo is like glowing from behind his head. So it's even a cool look. So for $13, this is probably quite a good piece to grab.
So even Guy said, oh, no, it's another good item. That's never a good thing. I mean, when Aaron gets a good item, he's never a happy camper. And Chrissy said, were they meaning that they silk screen printed? So do you know how it was printed?
It looks like it's a digital print of some type, but it's definitely not take it to Officeworks and get them to do it in their print shop one. It actually looks like it's quite high definition and quite thick ink. It isn't like a homemade job, which I thought it really was going to be.
So what that tells us, fans, is quite simply that good old Greg King, he's done it again.
Ronnie likes it when we say, Greg King, you've done it again. And of course, whenever something turns up, where I'm asking Ronnie to review it. So I sent him some pictures, and he sent quite a long review back to us. So we've got Vigo, the Romanian, the Ruin of Carpathia. This is a painting of one evil dude. Even better, it contains his evil presence and will try and come out of the wall and kill you. Well, not really. Maybe just possess you and make you bend to his will. This cursed painting is sure to bring spirit of Halloween to your abode all year along. It is realistic finished and has been made by fine craftsmen that have painstakingly reproduced on highest quality copy machines and the look of real paint and materials. This cheap copy is not a bad cheap copy, more an expensive item that you pay very little for. I give it 10 out of 10 for quality and 10 out of 10 for value. Nothing wrong with this product at all.
So what he's trying to tell you is he quite simply just put it on a very large colour photocopier and off he went.
Yes, so we've added it and hid it in there for all those people that like to play the Where's Wally. Now, before we move on, we had a last minute mail arrival today, Dags, when I got home. And I thought I would share the disappointment with everyone because the saga has been going along where I've been trying to get this small hobbit house. And I said, if I order something else, will you put it with it? And they said yes. And he even said he would send his minions or underlings or something like that to go and search the factory for one. And I ordered 2 items. I ordered a Two-Face coin replica for 99 cents when he got back to me and said, that isn't enough. Buy something that's about $30 or $40 and then we'll talk turkey. So I bought a headpiece to the staff of Ra because we've had one of those before and it worked out okay. Now I'm taking it. That's the Two-Face coin. I'll do a live opening.
Okay.
So there's
I'll give you the bigger screen. Yeah, the headpiece of the staff of Ra, could you be happy with that? Because you sold it for a massive profit.
Of course. So, and we have got a Two-Face coin, and it actually feels about the weight of a 50-cent piece. And
whose
it's
head's on the back? Elizabeth or Charles?
It's a double-headed Liberty thing. It's fine, but for 99 cents, that'll sell for $20 in the shop.
Yep, good on your capital stock. That'll be another 10 out of 10 product review for Ronnie Wu.
Now, here's the interesting thing. This is I presume, the headpiece to the staff of Ra. Do we think there is going to be a small home for hobbits in that as well?
Shrunk on the wash.
I'm thinking it's rattling, but I'm not hearing any hobbits screaming when I rattle it.
Yeah, they don't want to be any shorter if you cut them off.
So
you're seeing it here live, folks. There we go. Cool
Do you know
corner.
what?
Yeah, indeed,
I'm gonna have words with Ronnie because I'm gonna tell you right now. There's no, unless the hobbits have turned into hobos and they live in plastic garbage bags. There is no.
There we go. A small home for ants.
No home for hobbits. This is well packed though. I'll give them that. And so
suspense is killing me. Precious.
And it's getting smaller and smaller what we've actually got.
Well, you can't say they didn't jib on the packaging, that's for sure.
And we've got a jewelry presentation box here.
Bloody hell. Mate, it's like Russian dolls. Oh, look at that. How many Kadam heights is that, dude?
6.
Yeah, you got to take back one, is that right?
Well, do you want to know something? This is even better than the last one I got.
Jeez, eh? How good's that?
So there you go.
What's on the other side, dude?
I can't complain about that, I've got to say. But I'm going to complain because I only bought another one. This is really nice. I only bought another one because we were expecting to get the small home for hobbits, and we didn't get it. And I feel not ripped off. I feel lied to. I feel cheated on. Anyway.
But you might feel lied and cheated to, but you'll still say, stick it in the store, add an extra $100 or $200 on top, and it will sell.
Well, it actually looks like a quality piece. It's even better than the last one. There will be reviews from Ronnie and some words with Ronnie next week. So there we go. There was a live product opening, exclusive on Off the Card.
So for fans of those of you watching, when Aaron's looking at the thing, you think, oh, this is a grouse. That just means Chick Ching. He's got his own cash cow in the store. So there you go. Guy says, crikey, that looks awesome. It does look awesome. That means that the price will be quite good. Remember the last one, he actually said, oh, he paid this much for it. And of course, I was sitting in the store and up to like $100. I go, dude, you only paid like $20 for this originally, but someone bought it. So it was all good. The capitalist dog was at work.
It's all about supply and demand. Can you name another shop in Melbourne that has a replica headpiece to the staff of Ra?
Exactly right. Very, very good. It actually looks a bit too shiny. That's the thing. But yes, I do concede it looks very, very cool. With all that packaging you had to go through, I agree with Colin. You had to play pass the parcel. So very good. And you get the necklace as well. So you get a bit of a, you'll probably separate them and sell them individually, won't you? So
don't put ideas in my head.
Very, very cool. All right, that was very, very exciting. Yay, team. He's got more stuff to put into the store. If you go into the store, there is actually a Greg King's Cheaper Things section. Go in there and check it out. Although I get the feeling the staff of Ra is going to end up in the, or the headpiece is going to end up in the Raiders cabinet, and some turkey will buy it because that's the way the world turns. Very, very good. I agree, Greg. This is not good. We don't want awesome stuff from Ronnie. When he's 10 out of 10 is legitimate. Oh, yeah. Unbelievable. What's the deal with that?
I know. Oh, well. Well, maybe we'll get some crap soon.
Speaking of crap, it's now time for this. It's the Lord Vile's Vile File there, Mr. Aaron. Is that right? So what's been going on in the Vile's world this week?
I don't know. I'm thinking the Vile needs some intro music, though, doesn't he? It's a bit flat when we just introduce him like that. Maybe the Imperial March. But the Lord Vile has, of course, is the only one of us that's got any feedback or letters. He has quite an active social life for someone that doesn't have that much to do with the show.
I'm going to cut you off for a second. Sorry, Christy. Does regional Victoria count? The shop in Bunyip has a staff of Ra. The staff, as they say in the movie, is just a stick. So everybody's got one of those. It's the headpiece you want.
Yeah. Okay, if you put the two together, we can go and find the Ark of the Covenant, though.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. Okay, and you do actually have a map room replica in the store. Anyway, so here we go. We've got a letter that's come in.
Yeah, so, dear Lord Vile, I've enjoyed the movie-related Vile files the last week. It should be, I think, the last few weeks, and found something that you may like to show. It is a Netflix banner for the babysitter. Pay careful attention to the hands. Level 4 Sith acolyte Alan Cole. What's going on, Mags?
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, I think Alan said he was a level 3 Sith acolyte. We said, hang on, he's just given himself an entire promotion for some ranking that we don't even have. Then he sent another letter and took all that out. And now he's put it back in and gone up another level again. Mate, what's the deal with that?
I don't know. The midi-chlorine count's going up and up and up, isn't it?
I say those. His Sith acolyte status is going up and down like a fiddler's elbow. But anyway, so the important thing is to check out the babysitter, right? And this is the poster that he was referring to, and he's made a mention of the hands. What is weird about these hands, Mister Aaron?
Well, I guess there's like toast in it and I haven't eaten it, but no, I had to have a good look and wonder what it was all about. And it's just one of those things. It's got two right hands. The babysitter has two right hands. And we need to say to Alan, some of the stuff you've sent in is good, but we're not, hey, it's Saturday, and this isn't Media Watch Press. We don't need every single little mistake that's on banners and stuff like this. But thanks for your participation. But the Lord Vile has said he's knocking you back down to level 2 acolyte for that one. Not vile enough.
I mean, it's possible that arm there belongs to a second person who's standing next to the lady, but you don't see her. So, I don't know why you'd be holding a piece of toast behind her behind her back, but as one does. So there you go. All right. So what are we talking about tonight in the Vile File, Mr. Aaron?
Well, we're sticking with movie-related stuff, and we've had a look at Indian movie posters before, but something that the Vile came across in his travels, African movie posters are just as bad as the Indian ones. So we've put a compilation of those sort of video library paintings and video movie posters. These are from Africa.
And of course, Africa is a continent, right? So there's a shitload of countries within Africa. So what you might have in one country might be different to another country, but you get the general gist as to what's going on. Postcards from Africa.
I know. So there's some movie posters here. And the one thing about the, I guess the whole print industry over there is they don't seem to print out the regular posters. These are back in the days here where someone would go to your video library and there'd be a piece of art. So you might go down to your local Blockbuster and someone's done Avery Brooks from Deep Space Nine and he looks more like, I don't know, Dennis Rodman or something like this. But this tradition goes on in Africa as well. So we've got Jurassic Park there, one of the best interpretations of a poster I've ever seen. It's the lawyer from the toilet getting eaten by the T-Rex with a toilet with blood trickling down it. And I thought that's actually genius. If there's one scene you want on a poster, it's that one.
Yep. People will say, I've got to go and see what happens to that dude. That's the way to go. Works for me.
Yeah. Then we've got Alien versus Predator, and they've captured the alien okay, the Predator okay, but the alien looks really nothing like the alien from Aliens. And one of the things I keep seeing in these posters, they have this thing about they have to have someone decapitated in a lot of them. And the one on the end there is quite a hard one to pick. That's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, almost again, versus the Predator, which I don't remember happening in that movie.
Yeah, exactly right. And for those who have got really, really bad images on your screen, so you got this, what is a representation of the alien. But in case you're wondering, it's actually the Predator holding the head, the positioning of his spread legs and where the arm is and the head. I had to really look twice here and go, what's that alien actually, with the alien in inverted commas, actually doing? And he's actually not doing anything. So it does look a bit dodgy. And you are right. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the right-hand side, they've had a way, way, way too much of, was it called mutagen or something? So, yes, and they're holding axes too. And those axes are going to do some damage when they get slammed into good old Shredder's head. So very, very cool.
Here's some interesting ones. The Thing, and they've basically said, like, let's rip a head off again, and let's put different heads on everyone and a dog, and like let's have like almost a John Wick version of McCready, like in the poster as well. I do like how they've captured the original ever so subtly by having the lights coming out of the guy's face. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, the idea of that there's a human head on the dog, yeah, that's just kind of weird. And regarding Jurassic Park, I agree with Rusky Babes. You've heard of Toilet Human. That's Toilet Adventure. It was an adventure for the guy who got swallowed up by the T-Rex. But yes, The Thing, I kind of think they didn't get the gist of what the movie was about.
Yeah, well, same with Gladiator, where they've taken random scenes from Gladiator. And again, I love how someone is being eaten in the middle of the arena by a tiger with their guts out. They really go for this kind of thing in these posters. But the best one of all is Raiders of the Lost Ark, starring Angry Anderson. I mean, what's the deal with that? Like, the little fertility idol looks more like Boobuk the owl from Clash of the Titans than the idol, and then you've just got like a weird pygmy head with the snake coming out. I guess that's from the Well of the Souls scene. But again, they've not really captured the exact essence of that movie, have they?
So who's this meant to be? Angry Anderson? Because I know he can't be beaten, but who's that?
That's got to be the German flight mechanic who he
Oh,
beats.
yes, of course. Yeah.
Just a really bad version of it.
And if you want to know where to get this thing, you got to go to Rolls Royce Video Club.
There you go. They're the Rolls Royce of posters.
Yeah, I love it. But yes, you sell the movie on the snakes coming out of the demon's head at the top. Yeah, love it. All right.
Now, these ones are hilarious. Cujo the killer dog, and they've taken the Cujo dog and they've just put a different cocker spaniel, not a cocker spaniel, but a spaniel on the head there, and it's just you've got this. All their other posters, you have normal movies and someone's decapitated. They have the movie about the killer dog, and they take the Rottweiler and they replace it with just a normal dog and slap some blood around the face. I don't know what's going on there. So. Top Dog, another one. You've got Chuck Norris and what looks like the Wampa almost, and man's best friend. And I'm telling you what, he's not looking like man's best friend, Max the evil dog. So I don't know what's happening with the posters, but an awful lot of artistic license is taking place in all of them.
Yeah, and remember the idea of the poster is meant to sell you to watch convince you to go and watch the film. And you do look at some of these posters, you go, you know what? I reckon I might give that one a miss. Like Man's Best Friend, yes, Max the Evil Dog. Maybe it's from Terminator 2 because the name of the dog in that the artificial name was Max. So maybe that had something to do with it. But a bit dodgy.
Friday the 13th. I mean, you know what you're going to get there, but for some reason, instead of an axe, he's got like a shovel. I don't know what the deal is with the guy down the bottom and his hands turning into some weird monster. And then you've got the protagonist stabbing Jason in the back with a knife, which is usually the other way around. That doesn't happen too much. Just a weird interpretation of the movie. Children of the Corn Part 3. I don't know what's going on there. Corn. I can't really remember the plot of the movie. I know it's he who's behind the rose, but I'm pretty sure if you rented that, you're not going to get anything like the poster. And the great one there is Hellraiser 2. My favorite scenes in Hellraiser is where Pinhead eats people. And what's happened there, you've got a crossover with Star Trek because you've got Fat Mr. Scott, who's beamed down probably onto the Event Horizon, where you've got Pinhead there and he's getting eaten by Pinhead. So that's quite a weird poster. Again, don't be a red shirt in a Hellraiser movie.
Well, yeah, and that kind of does look a little bit like Data to a degree. I like this one. I'm talking about the Rolls Royce Video Club, right? Rusky Babes said they ain't fussy down that way. I'd say the video club would look at a coconut.
It's actually quite racist.
Oh, absolutely love it. And it's worth noting that, yes, Children of the Corn and Hellraiser are both sequels in the third movie, so they're not the original one. But who knows what they're up to at that particular point in the story.
Yep. Well, they've perfectly captured sleepwalkers. That was my favorite scene in the whole movie. Then you've got Planet Terror, and Planet Terror actually features a couple of times. I don't know the fascination with Planet Terror. Now, I don't know. Have you seen Planet Terror, Dags?
No.
It's one of the Quentin Tarantino Grindhouse movies, and they've totally captured nothing from that entire movie in there. But the best one ever, that has to be the best Terminator poster I have ever seen. Like, I don't know, that's like the Ronnie Wu version of the Terminator that I thought we were going to get, that version of Vigo. Like, that's got everything. That's got not the Terminator, not proper guns, not the proper logo. It's got nothing. It's like very, very bizarre that they've gone with that. It's like they told someone the story and didn't let them see the movie and go and draw this.
Yeah, I can't imagine coming out of that dude's mouth, I'll be back. It kind of doesn't work, does it? And yeah, right with Planet Terror, the fact that she got a machine gun stuck on her leg, I thought, mate, you can't knock that. That's
yeah. Well, surprisingly, that is actually from the movie, but that doesn't look anything like Rose McGowan, I tell you.
That's an interesting observation from Rusky Babes. Planet Terror guy looks like Bob from Twin Peaks. Yes, very, very cool. Yes, absolutely love it. Oh, here we go. These are some movies you got to check out.
Sister Act. If I went and saw Sister Act, seeing that poster, it'd be totally different Sister Act to what I think I was going to go see. That's the Sister Act Whoopi Goldberg strip show version, I think. And then we've got another Planet Terror there, and again a close up of the machine gun leg, and again not at all like Rose McGowan. In fact, she's a bleach blonde there. Both, well, I can't say that as a kid. It's a family show. So yeah, another two amazing posters that just make you not want to hire the movies.
And I agree with you, Chrissy. Yep. If you got people who think they're an artist, just go to Africa, paint posters, and you could end up making an absolute fortune over there. So it is very good stuff. There's room for everybody.
Well, you've got X minus men there. And, a really interesting, it almost looks like a 70s Shaft version of Wolverine. And down the bottom, the other X-Men, which I presume is Mystique, who and maybe Nightcrawler, almost look like Hindu god versions of the X-Men. I don't know what they're trying to do there. Probably the most accurate to the original poster. You've got the Home Alone 2 version, which is very similar to the original poster. I think they've just got the original and basically copied it. But yeah, it's not quite right. It's almost like when you get the guys from South Park try and do a cut and paste version of something, and that's probably taken the guy forever. And you've got Chuck Norris in Invasion USA, where all the body parts are out of proportion. So they've obviously done, oh, let's do the legs, let's do the body, let's do the head, but let's do them all in different scales.
I love it. And I do like the fact that with Wolverine's claws, they've said, nah, we need the blood. Put the blood. I'm surprised they haven't got it dripping off there, actually, because that's what people would buy. They go, oh, my God, that's groovy. He's got blood dripping off his hands. Got to go and check that out. So, very cool.
Now, again, these must be the best interpretations of Mission Impossible movies ever, because they uncannily look like, well, I guess Corey Haim or Corey Feldman.
Very good. They're going.
So in the first one there, I don't know who they've used as the artistic reference for that, but it looks like Corey Feldman in the second one as Tom Cruise too. So again, probably if you're Tom Cruise, you'd be able to walk the streets of Africa or countries in Africa and have absolutely no one recognize you at all.
Yeah, I'm afraid in these posters, Tom Cruise has been chasing parked cars. So there you go. And in fact, in number 2, he actually looks more Terminator-like.
He does.
The Terminator one was in the Terminator poster, if that makes sense. So
yeah, and he's walking out of the fire and everything. Yep, you could just slap the Terminator logo, and it's a better poster for Terminator.
So if he says, I'll be back in that poster, it actually works. So there you go. Very, very cool. So what are you trying to tell me about all the artwork from the posters, the movie posters in Africa, Mr. Aaron?
Toured the subcontinent and found the posters substandard, and they've well and truly been violated.
Absolutely fantastic. And as we said, Africa is a continent, so you'd have to go to a lot of countries to try and work out exactly which one you're looking for. Once you find them, you'll be the Rolls-Royce Video Club. Got to check that out. So there you go.
The crazy thing, though, because those posters are sort of all one-off artistic ones, they are very coveted by collectors and go for thousands and thousands of dollars.
Very good. Yes, that's definitely money well spent. What can we say? All right, very, very cool. All right, it's time for a bit of interaction now for yourself. This is where Ange's 52 cents can finally make an appearance, because it's now time for this. Ooh, baby, do you know that's right? All right, Mr. Aaron, what are we talking about this evening regarding our eBay guesses?
We're looking at 12-inch figures. So 12-inch figures are a scale that a lot of people collect. They've been around for ages, right back to, I guess, people started collecting the original Action Man and G.I. Joes, and now everyone's after the hot toys. So we're going to look at some of the 12-inch figures that have sold recently on eBay.
Very good. Oh, the dudes have already left town a couple of weeks ago, but here they are. They're back again.
Here's one of those interesting things when you get someone like Kiss Tour. There's a spike in prices, and there's also a spike of merchandise available because people take advantage of that. So a lot turns up and it goes for maybe more than you would expect it goes for. Do you think this is true of this set of Kiss dolls?
Well, the issue I have is they're missing all the bits, all the accessories, the instruments and the guitars and all that other stuff. And that usually, of course, adds more to the price. But I do agree, when they're in town, if someone had said, oh, yep, now's the time to sell, they may have actually done quite well. And for those who've ever been into Aaron's Collectables, you actually have how big are they? The really gigantic ones. I mean, they're like 4 foot tall or something, aren't they?
the half-size ones that play music, the Destroyer set. Yeah, so
Yeah,
they
it's always set up on the top left-hand shelf, so you got to go and check them out if you ever get a chance. The biggest action figures you'll ever see in your life. Any bigger, and they would have been 1-to-1 scale. All right, so Gavin said $5,000, so there you go. That's more than a grand a dude. Guy has said a 900. Moneybag Sullivan has said 2,000. Mick, good to see Mick joining the show. He hasn't been around for a while. Good on you, Mick. I missed $450 there, which is particularly cool. What does everybody else think? Don't look them up. Don't Google it. Don't eBay it. Just take a guess. We're all just mucking around here. I like this 4 cents, 1 cent for each dude. And in fact, if you have a 1 cent, you could stick it in the Mystic Seer machine from the Twilight Zone. So how good will that be? 1977. Oh, guacamole. That's actually very, very groovy. So there would have to be some value associated with them at that point. Natasha and the little dude. We actually saw a picture of Natasha earlier on from the banquet, which is particularly cool. And she said to 1,200. Greg King has said $2 each at the garage sale. Oh, that's not very optimistic. Spankin apparently says $1,000. Rusky Babes has gone for $4,000, $1,000 a dude, and Ange finally returned with his 52 cents that he said earlier on. In other words, most people have got no idea what these are worth, but you'd have to think from 1977 they would have some value associated with them. All right, so Kiss Mego Vintage 1977 action figures. It's the lot as they are. They are used and abused. Make of that what you will, and at least it went for a whopping $1,080. How good's that? Good old Spankin, who's a bit of a Kiss fan. I think he got it right on the money. How about that?
I have a set of those in the shop in slightly better condition for $400, and they've sat there all the way through the Kiss tour, and no one's come in and offered me $1,000 for them. So maybe I should whack them on eBay.
Well, to be fair, they are stuck on the bottom shelf of the cabinet, so they're a little hard to see. But yeah, how about that? So that's actually like $250 a dude. So, well, how good is that? 52 cents, he was right. Very good. So, yeah, unbelievable. And that's without all the accessories too, isn't that right, dude?
Well, the Mego ones didn't come with many accessories. They did come with the guitars, but you had to cut the guitars out of the actual box. They were cardboard, so none of them ever have the accessories. They were pretty complete for the loose versions.
Very cool. Now, you've seen a lot of descriptions for a lot of items. Rare, collectible, like exclusive and all the rest of it. It's not very often you get the term lovely. In lovely condition.
They are in lovely condition, and you can tell that because the colors are still really nice on them. They are vintage pieces. They're from 1978, I think, and they are rare toys. They are the 12-inch versions of they look like Mego, but they're slightly taller, sort of Captain Action style. And you can tell these are nice because of the color of them. They don't have much play and they haven't faded too much. And these are quite hard figures to find. So when they turn up in that condition, there's probably obviously going to be a few Batman fanatics who want to add them to the collection.
Yeah, it's good that they used actual fabric for the outfits as well. These days, they would just do it now, molded in plastic and be done with it. So that is particularly cool. 12-inch action figures. All right, Gavin said $749. Angel said $520. Guy has said 3,700. Moneybag Sullivan is at 500. Colin is at 550. So what does everybody else think? 1978. Mick has said 680. Christie's gone for 2 cents. 1 cent a dude. Oh, Christy, wow. Where's the optimism? Jeepers creepers. Natasha, by complete contrast, has gone for $4,500. And Natasha and the little dude, soon to be the little dudes, because there's two of them. And Spankin has said 800, which is not a bad guess at all. So it could be $400 a dude. What does everybody else think for the Mego Batman and Robin 12-inch action figures? Very, very cool. Rusky Babes has gone for $1,000 each. And you are right, Jacqueline. Good to see Jacqueline joining us. Fabric is definitely more warmer than the printed plastic. But these days, they do things in plastic because it is much cheaper as opposed to the old days where they did do things in fabric, which looked particularly cool. All right, so what do you reckon they went for, kids? Amigo, Batman and Robin 12-inch action figures, 1978, rare set, lovely condition. Make of that what you will. Well, they went for a whopping $460.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty reasonable. Did Colin get them at $550?
No, no. I think Angel's closer at $520.
Moneybags had 5.
Yes, he did. So hang on, there's a bit of a mix. Yep. You are right. I think Moneybags has got these. He's $40 short over. So there you go. How good's that?
Yeah, I thought that was a good price for those because they really don't turn up very much in that condition. So a nice little set.
Very, very cool. All right, so there you go. So yes, 460. Yeah, that's not too bad, I suppose. And they are loose, but they're in pretty good nick. So you think that in time their value will increase. All right, so here we go. Everybody's most favorite character from every Indiana Jones movie ever produced. Good old Mutt. He is back.
He's been in the news lately as well, but we won't go there. So this is, of course, Mutt from the Crystal Skull, and they sold so few of these that they are quite hard to find. Now, if anyone is actually looking for them, that's up for debate, but this is a original 1/6 scale 12-inch Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls Mutt figure, Mutt Williams. Is there anyone out there that wants it? Oh, look at all the low bids coming in.
Absolutely fantastic. Not only is he probably the most is it Jar Jar Binks of the friggin' Indiana Jones universe, but I don't think even Shia LaBeouf is a popular person either. People just don't warm to him. Andrew said 52. Moneybags has gone for $1. Natasha and the little dude has gone for 25. Colin's gone for $4.25. Chrissy's gone for Chrissy put in a proper bid finally. How's that for 47? Guy's gone for 8. Rusky Babe, 6 Yeah, good on you. Spankin has said 150. Mick has gone for 65. I mean, whoever bought this could have the last laugh and say I paid like $6,000 for this because it's like so ultra rare. But it is interesting that they made this thing thinking that people out there are going to want to buy it, and of course, clearly that was never going to be the case. Of all the characters they could have done from Indiana Jones, Mutt was definitely not the one to go with. But anyway, they did it, and here we are. Gavin's gone for 5 cents, and that's probably not a bad bid. You never know, Mr. Gavin. So what does everybody else think? Indiana Jones, The Kingdom, The Crystal Skull, Mutt Williams, the previous owner, has said, yes, buying this was a bad mistake, and I'm trying to just offload it. All right, so what do you reckon it went for? It went for a massive and a whopping, is it a lot or is it really, really cheap? It went for a whopping $165 there, Mr. Aaron. What's the deal with that?
Well, Dave gets it at 150, and I do think it's funny, all the people that put in comedy 2 and 5 cents, no one laughed that time round because that's what everyone was expecting. It is just one of those things where completists do want the set, and it was an expensive high-end figure when it came out, so people who did buy it aren't going to just sell it for a couple of bucks. Doesn't turn up very much, It's one of those things that's rare because he was originally unpopular, not rare because everyone bought them and they disappeared.
It is interesting, just thinking about it now. Of all the characters from all the movies, he definitely would be right at the bottom of the food chain in terms of popularity. So it would have been a bit of a risk to produce this figure in the first place, thinking that people are going to buy it because no one liked him. So anyway, but yeah, that's the way it goes. Oh, here we go. It's the Master.
This is an unusual one. I'll be very surprised if anyone guesses what this went for. It's the Master from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So everybody knows Buffy and Angel and some of their friends, Willow and Anthony Stewart Head and things like that. But the villains were kind of one deal, one season villains. And this was the villain from the first series of Buffy, the Master, who's that very iconic sort of vampire look, almost actually the vampires from American Werewolf that spring out from behind the curtains, that sort of horror look. Now, this is a hard figure to find. So I would be surprised if anyone gets what this went for. There were 10 bids on it as well, so there was a bit of interest.
Yeah, I think they took the Nosferatu look. I think that's what you were trying to say. Took the idea from that. All right, so I think we're starting with Angela at 520. Natasha and the little dude is at 275. Moneybag Sullivan is at 375. Christie is at 1458. Guy has said 175. Mick has said 15, so he's not very optimistic about it. Oh, here we go. The Spankmeister. Oh, cop that if you don't buy an umpire. When it comes to Spankmeisters, you can only think of this. The Spankmeister. Well, he's got 2 so far, so he's doing quite well. 175. Colin said 987. Rusky Babes has gone for 460. Yes, I didn't even know they even produced this. So this must have been, is this recent or from a long time ago?
Oh, this is for when Buffy was still screening. So it's got to be, 20, 30 years old now, really.
And it's also worth noting, everybody, he's got all the attachments like the candles and the goblet and all the rest of it. And as Aaron has pointed out many times before, they're the bits that tend to go missing. So if they're included, then that's actually a very, very cool thing. And Gavin has gone for 48. But yeah, the Master was an excellent bad guy for the first season, but then they knocked him off. And if I recall, they tried to bring him back at some point too, which is particularly cool. All right, so Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the Master 12-inch figure sideshow collectible, looking very, very cool for that show that aired back in the 1990s. How much did it go for? It went for, and I just said the vial has finally popped in there, $50. Fantastic. It went for a whopping $22.50.
Now, it's interesting. This line was from the very early Sideshow stuff, and they had a real problem in getting the likenesses. The Buffy, the Angel, and pretty much all the human characters from this series are atrocious. They really are an insult to the actors, and that wasn't because they were particularly bad. It was just at the very beginning of the sort of high-end 12-inch figures. So they are quite crap. This is quite a good one. Out of all of them, this is probably the one that looks the most, but there just isn't a demand for it. It is one of those things where I think they probably started at $1 and let it go. If they'd have maybe put $199, buy it now and just let it sit, you would have had someone buy it for that. So this is more about being smart when you sell your items rather than what the item's actually worth.
I love this comment from Christy. And if you're hearing funny noise, because I don't know where her sister lives, if you're hearing someone next door to your house spewing their guts, you'd be, he's like, oh, that's Christy's sister losing a load because the Master figure went for a big chicken feed. Oh, that's funny, isn't it? Be spewing. Yeah, look, I tend to agree with you. Look at 10 bids and 22 freaking bucks. What were they bidding? Like freaking 50 cents each or something? That's just bullshit, wasn't it?
I think Mick got that one. Yeah, it is. I'd buy if they brought that into the shop to sell me, I'd have probably paid them $50 for it. So
yeah.
that
someone walks into the store, says, "I saw this on eBay for $22. I'll sell it to you for $22." And you go, "You bid, I'll have that. Thank you very much." So you can probably sell off the accessories for that price, if not more. So there you go. All right, last item. Oh, it's the topic for tonight.
It's Steve Austin, the $6 million man. He is one of those classic iconic figures that was one of the first TV tie-ins that did amazingly well. So this is in very nice condition. His full red jumpsuit, which I don't know if he used to wear a red jumpsuit with the $6 million logo on when he was a spy in the series, but there you go. This is in pretty good condition. Most of them turn up hammered now. So maybe it was a collector who had it and sold it, but there were a lot of them. They sold a squillion of these back in the day.
I'd have to check. Isn't it in the opening credits where they dun dun with the music and that? Isn't he wearing a red jumpsuit there? We'll look at the images very, very soon because they're coming up straight after this. All right, Andrew's gone for $5,200. A loose Steve Austin. Interpret that any way you will. Colin said $750. Natasha and the little dude is at $175. Gavin has said $37.80. Spankin says $140, and he's doing really well tonight. Christy is at $130. I wonder who else's sister's going to be spewing after learning about this. I like the guy Thomas here, $6 million. Moneybag Sullivan has said $550. So there you go. Guy has said $1,480. Mick has said $45. So yeah, very, very cool. Good stuff. 1973. Holy shit, that's 50 years old as of next year. Holy
I know.
Guacamole, mate.
Going on.
Did you ever register? That's 49 years ago, dude.
I know. It's crazy.
Mate,
I couldn't believe it because it's a show from when I was growing up. I just don't register myself as being old.
Yeah, I tell you what. So I like that. Yeah, it's red with blood from when he crashed the ship. Yeah, exactly right. All right, so vintage $6 million man still has the arm cover in place. It was probably a bit of a big deal because that probably got lost up many, many vacuum cleaners over the journey. So how much do you reckon it went for? 8 bids. It is used. It is looking very, very cool. I have to press the button in slow motion. And it went for a whopping $163. Oh, dude, what a letdown.
Yeah, that is actually not too bad. I think in that condition, generally they go for about $200. I've seen some crazy ones where they go for more. I saw one when I was looking for the episode tonight, a busted one with no clothes and busted arms and legs. It still went for $39. So someone thought they had the technology to rebuild him.
That was directly after the crash. Natasha and the little dude, they get it and they actually get like $9 back or something. So, yeah, for like nearly 50 years old, that's actually a little bit cheaper than even I thought it was going to be. So, yeah, there you go. What do you reckon?
There you go. It was an interesting spread of stuff tonight, wasn't it?
Indeedy. Now, before everybody buggers off because I've got better things to watch, guess what? It's now time for a commercial, and you wouldn't believe it. This is what's happening next week. It is Aaron's World party time. Excellent. Yes, next week, the lad is going to be running solo in his own show, Rip It Off the Card, featuring Aaron only. So everybody has to tune in because I won't be there. I'm off doing something else that particular evening. But Aaron, give us a spiel as to what you're going to be doing next Wednesday.
So next Wednesday, because I'm running solo, I thought I'd pull the dags and just do a show about my collecting and things that I love. So we won't be doing all the regular things. The show will only go for an hour, and we'll just be talking about my collecting. And if you have any questions you want to know about what's in my collection, how we got into collecting, anything you want to ask me about collectibles, I'm quite happy to sort of have a chat and have a sit down and talk about whatever comes up. Sit down and talk about whatever pops up.
Good on you. I was going to say, like you said, it's only going to go for an hour, right? And it's like, I bet you I'll come back from my event, and like 7 hours later, you're still going, the questions won't stop, mate. Everybody wants to know all these things.
He's like,
so,
God, I was still asking questions at 3 a.m. How could I sign off?
There you go. People are asking questions in advance. Where did the hair go? Oh, I love it. Oh, I like it from Rusky Babes. And our tribute to Jodie Whittaker, greatest Doctor Who ever. Absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, come along next week. Support the lad while he talks about himself. The greatest topic in the entire universe is Aaron talking about himself. And you should learn a lot of things and ask all your questions. And actually, on a serious note, if you want to talk about collectibles and ask questions, that's the time to do it. So it should be very, very cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're going to say something?
No. If people don't ask questions, it will be an hour's talk on Doctor Who.
Oh, mate, that's enough for me to turn off. All right, very, very cool. Luckily, I'll be out that night. Very, very good. Just very, very quickly, if you haven't done so already, be sure to check out our socials, all the usual Instagrams and Twitters and YouTubes and all that other stuff. So we're out there if you want to talk to us, and check out the other shows from Tuesday night and Monday night as well. So there's all these things going on, which is particularly cool. What do you reckon, Mr. Aaron?
Yeah, I think the more people who like us and subscribe, the more of that residual money we get from all the people that watch and the advertising.
Yeah, yes, all those are zero. Where did Aaron learn to press the buttons? What you didn't know, he always knows how to press my buttons. That's all you need to go.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Very, very cool. All right, and it's like, where am I going? Yes, that is indeed the question. I'll actually be somewhere else watching Aaron going, what's he doing to my show? He's wrecking it. Rip it off the Aaron. I'll absolutely love it. Aaron Ostrich on his own show. Sorry?
Lick it off the Aaron.
Oh, dude, it's a family show, dude. What can I say? Hey, good stuff. Me and Greg should do the Cornflakes show. Yes, very, very cool. All right, good stuff. Now it's time for our feature presentation, and this one has been 6 million years in the making, so to speak. Mr. Aaron, what are we discussing this evening?
So when we talk about milestones in the toy industry, there's a few big ones that come up. There's Star Wars, there's Nintendo, but one of the ones that people don't talk about so much is the $6 Million Man. And it is one of those shows that was one of those iconic shows that is so good because it appeals to different age groups. Kids love it. Adults can watch it without it being a kid's show. It ran for years and years. It had spin-offs, but most importantly, it was popular enough to do amazingly well with the merchandisers and the licensees. So for those who don't know, the $6 Million Man, the Bionic Man, was about Steve Austin, who was a test pilot who has a massive crash when they're launching, I think, the prototype of the space shuttle back in '73, which is a bit before it originally came out. But they were waiting for this to happen because they needed a guinea pig to put into their bionics program. And Steve was that guinea pig. So he didn't walk away from the crash. He lost his legs, he lost an arm, and he lost his an eye. And we flipped through everything there. But his friends were Oscar, who he worked for and sent him on his missions. And of course, we had the Bionic Woman. So there we've got Oscar, who after a couple of, I think he was in series 1, not the original mini series, and then we've got the Bionic Woman, who was his love, and then forgot who he was, and then years later they got married in sort of that TV sort of tradition. And then we had some of the villains, and the most popular one were Bigfoot, who was played by Andre the Giant, and also by Ted Cassidy, because Bigfoot was a returning villain, and we had the Maskatron, who was John Saxon, and that was quite a good villain as well. And then those pesky fembots turned up multiple times, and you know what? They had the technology to rebuild people, but they didn't have enough gaffer tape to keep their faces from falling off, which I always found a bit surprising. And then we had the Martian Death Probe, actually the Venus Death Probe, up on the other side, which looked like a bit like a Russian version of a Dalek.
So Christie's asked, so yeah, $6 million was a lot of money. How much would it be in today's market? Probably 40 something million, as a guess, 45, $50 million. But just the title alone is really catching. And there's a lot of things regarding TV history, and you go, okay, I really dialed into this and really dialed into that. The thing that really worked for the $6 million man is to say, how do you like show the skill of all the bionics, but do it in a way that the audience buys it? And of course, it was all the slow motion stuff. All right, he's going to do something, and it's complete tripe, but it works. You see him running in super slow motion. They put the sound effect in, and the audience buys it, and they just think he's running 600,000 kilometers an hour, which he's not. But at least in the opening credits, you sort of see it. Now, me personally, I think it's one of the best opening credit sequences of any TV show I've ever seen, where you actually see, I've got a problem here, and the ship crashes, and it's a real ship crash, by the way. It was mentioned by Rusky Babs way up here as a fun factoid, right? It's actually a real crash, but the astronaut in that crash did survive, so they didn't use one where the guy died. Yeah. But what a fantastic way of opening and saying, okay, we have the technology, which obviously by 70 standards is really, really old school compared to today. But they have the technology to rebuild him, and just the concept of being able to do that, and you got better, stronger, faster. You see all the fancy stuff for the eye and the legs and all that. Absolutely ingenious, and you believe that. You completely swallowed it. And the fact that he was a good guy and not like some North Korean or a Russian or anything like that kind of really worked. And it was an ingenious concept, and I think a lot of people really dialed into it because of that.
And then it would have to have been the 20 billion ruble man, wouldn't it? Because the currency doesn't have the same weight. It is interesting you talk about the opening, because do you know that wasn't on the original in the first series? It had like this almost James Bondish opening with "He's the Man." Almost a blaxploitation sounding song that they changed when the producers changed. No one remembers that at all, and they never use it as a highlight because it wasn't as good as the iconic one. And what you say about the slow motion, it worked really well, but do you know it worked really well for production as well? Because one of the things that costs the most is actually screen time. The more you film of something, the more expensive it is. And by doing stuff in slow motion, they filled up action sequences in a way that was realistic and looked good, but actually was cheap, because they could slow motion action sequence and get twice as much time out of it. So it was a very economical thing to do as well.
Yeah, I think when they were producing the production, they had to really sit and think, how are you going to get around this problem? And they say you can't physically show the guy going full speed all the time, and they just do the slow-mo stuff. And yeah, the audience bought it and putting the sound effects in. I'm not sure how they did the sound effects. Yeah, it was actually a real winner.
Again, the sound effect for the bionic action wasn't in the first couple of series, and then in one series a robot used that sound effect for fighting Steve Austin, and they go, hang on a second, this really sells the slow motion stuff. And suddenly from the next episode, Steve Austin used that sound effect all the time. When we talk about producers that love cutting corners and reusing stuff, who do you think came up with that? Could you guess if I say that? Who reused footage over and over?
Well, I'm thinking of Glenn Larson, but is that before his time? Yeah, Glenn Larson. Yeah.
Glenn Larson, $6 million man has some great pedigree to it as well. The producers you had was Glenn A. Larson. You also had Harve Bennett. He came in and retooled it and did a lot of that stuff that is iconic now. And then the last producer of this, and it didn't drop in quality, but he is known for taking over series and destroying them, is the man behind Series 3 of Star Trek and Series 2 of Space 1999, also produced the $6 million man, and that was Fred Freelander. Is it Fred?
While you're thinking about that, so obviously they made the other follow-up series, the spin-off, The Bionic Woman, and of course Rusky Babes is saying it's actually screening on Channel 9 at the moment, 9 go at 12 in the morning, which is particularly cool. And there's questions about Bionic Boys and Bionic Dogs and all the rest of it. Oh yeah, once they got into the zone of saying, oh, this is a hit formula, how else can you spread it out? And of course, it doesn't mean any of those shows are as successful as the original, but Yeah, it was no surprise at all that people suddenly sticking bionics in just about everything. Because in the original pilot episode, of course, the original show of the Bionic Woman, when she first appeared, she actually dies in that. Then they realise, oh, that's a bad move. Bring it back for the series. So somehow or other, she gets resurrected. But we'll discuss that later on. Is that right there, Mr. Aaron?
Well, I guess we'll go through it now because we're going to just go on to the toys after. But she was in the final 2 episodes of series 2, and she was an incredibly popular character. And like you said, they killed her off. And everyone was like, you can't do that. And they had a bigger, yeah, that's right, Fred Freeberger. Is it Freeberg? Is that how you pronounce it? I'm not sure.
It would be free if it's spelt like that. It depends if the E is before the I. Freeberger or Freiberger. So depending where the E is. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, and as other people were saying, they did try and spin out with the Bionic Boy, Bionic Pets, Bionic everything. Bionic Man was really interesting. A $6 million man, Bionic Woman. They would do that thing, which doesn't happen so much now, where a story starts on one series and then finishes on another series. So you have to watch both of them to get the full story. And the casts were interchangeable, but the last series of the Bionic Woman went to a different network, and Steve Austin could not appear, but Oscar and the tech doctor could. So some of them could work on both shows and some of them couldn't. And of course, they both wound up at about the same time.
I think a key thing about the success, why the show would have been successful for the audience. Now, to be fair, a bit like you, I was only a kid when it first came out. Is one, they took it really seriously, right? It wasn't like a joke thing. And you can actually believe that the bionics were the real deal because they show all the technological bits like Terminator stuff, right? Like endoskeletons, all this sort of bizzo. And you can go, this is legit, you know. And you think now these days, you'd be thinking on Area 51, they're probably testing this stuff for real. And that I think works. They've taken it seriously, like it's really, really hardcore, and that it does come across as being completely rigid-edge. And I think because they easily made a farce out of this. You know, he's got the super strong arm and the big eye, and he's pervert on chicks like 6 miles away, crap like that, right? Real rubbishy stuff. But no, they took it very seriously, and I think then that's a credit to them, the fact that they didn't make a joke of it. So yeah, very cool.
Through the whole series, they kept the continuity good. So Steve suddenly didn't get new powers episode to episode and then disappear the next. There wasn't some episode where they go, now he's got a laser in his eye or something like that. They actually did keep it on the level all the way through. And also, you had the production team actually seemed to care, and so did all the stars in the show who would keep it in order and also do a lot for promotion and things like that.
Yeah, and you're right. He actually had limitations with the bionics. I remember one episode he had to jump down from a really high roof, and he was concerned with the height, and he lands, and he just breaks everything, all these sparks and shit. So yeah, he didn't like suddenly leap tall buildings in a single bound. Chris, you mentioned about the fact that some of the mechanical prostheses in use today, heard somewhere that the show inspired many medical improvements. It's certainly possible, and it was certainly believable when you first saw it on TV. You could have swallowed it and said, is this the real deal? But the fact it cost $6 million, you're thinking, my God, the $6 million, like that is magnificent. So,
well, the one that it really predicted was Jamie Summers' bionic ear, which was science fiction at the time and is now real.
That's true. Now, Andrew's come up with a good point. He needed a bionic spine. That is a very good observation, right? Because ultimately, he's still got the human spine, and some of the things he did, especially with his arm and all the rest of it, the body wouldn't have been able to compensate with it. So, I mean, from a weight perspective and everything like that, if he's lifting up a car, you know, that's all well and good. The arm can do it, but the rest of the body can't support it, even if the legs can support it. So, yeah, there is a bit of a suspension of disbelief there. That's a fair point, actually. So, yeah.
Well, they had with Lee Majors, they had a good star for the role. He was a very likable person. He was always a person before the Bionic Man who had played good guys in, you know, cop shows and cowboys and things like that. And he was an amiable person who the audience liked. The Bionic Man is definitely a 70s hip guy. He's usually undercover in disguise. He always has the super wide collars. He always has his chest open. And he is one of those stars that he gets the guest girl at the end of every episode. They sort of go off together they get together as boyfriend, girlfriend, and then they're never ever mentioned again into the next episode. So he was a likable person, and he was a role model that a lot of boys and men at the time enjoyed watching.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think the fact he's an astronaut at a time when astronauts are, you know, it's like the hip dudes. And I like this one from Gavin. Yeah, back then we didn't care about logic. You know what? And I agree with you. You know, if you want to sit and analyze it, it wouldn't work in real life, but it didn't need to. It was perfect for the TV series. And you are right, Rusky Babes. Yeah, it was a superhero that worked for TV, and it wasn't a big, super huge, large guy or anything like that. It was just a dude who had these mechanical bits inside him. and he was
Yep.
good to go. So, yeah, other than that, I remember it vividly, and yeah, it was fantastic
Well,
TV
the
watching.
evolution
But of
of the
course, they
show-
had to produce they had to produce adversaries that can match him. You can't just have your villain of the week just being a bank robber or something. You had to do something left field. That's where the Bigfoot thing came in, and other robots and the real sci-fi side started to make an appearance. Because in the end, you go, well, he can just walk in there and just beat these dudes up like it's nothing. It's like, well,
Well,
that's nothing. The gangsters, the mobs, the mafia, or whatever, is like you need really hardcore bad guys, and that's where I guess they had to push the envelope a little bit. Yeah, sorry, dude, cut you off.
it is interesting you bring that up because I was going to talk about that. In the evolution of the show, he went from being almost a James Bond character where the government put $6 million into him, so he had to go into espionage and defuse nuclear bombs and stuff. When it got to the TV series and they didn't have the budget, it was really a real mix of monster of the week, and sometimes he's just taking down bootleggers, and he's always described like disguised as a lumberjack or something like that. It's really bizarre. And he went into space more times than Cheech and Chong, I tell you. You've got like a couple of episodes where they're saving people in orbit, and then you've got another episode where he's chopping down trees and stopping drug running at a logging location. So they really cast a wide net when it went to the storytelling for this show. And I guess that's good, because if you're watching it and you don't like it one week, you've got Bigfoot the next week and everybody loves Bigfoot.
Yeah, you can't have too many Bigfoots. And just quickly, yeah, in the movie, his bionics were breaking down. So it's good that they did that to show that he wasn't infallible. And it was cutting edge technology. And of course, that fails all the time. We're going to have to get on the collectibles. Otherwise, we'll never get this episode done in time. Yeah. So that's what we're looking at. We're actually looking at the merchandise for the $6 Million Man and what was produced for the Bionic Woman, which was not very much at all.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Aaron, mate.
So, yeah, we'll be looking at the merchandise, and there is so much merchandise. Rather than trying to look at everything, we're just going to have a good look at each section of merchandise, because if we went into everything, we would be here for multiple shows. It was a show that did really well with people and the collectibles and magazines and comics and jigsaws and all that kind of thing. Interestingly, a lot of it is very hard to find in Australia. It wasn't as merchandised here, even though it was shown here for years and years, as it was in America. And we will be looking at the action figures. Probably we'll be looking at them last up, but we're going to go through stuff in order as it was released and have a look at the evolution of the merchandise. What's collectible, what's it worth, and where can you get it? So the $6 Million Man merchandise.
The red jumpsuit. I was right. He's wearing it in the opening credit sequence, and that's the one they would have used in the doll. So there you go. Right. Very, very cool.
So the $6 Million Man, I don't know if you knew this, it was actually based on an existing series of books. And he wasn't called the $6 Million Man in that, he was called Cyborg. And I have a very interesting question for you, Dags.
Here we go.
Do cyborgs dream of organic sheep?
That's very, very cool. I think with the show, they wanted to call it Cyborg, but of course they didn't have the rights for it. So they had to sort of like, okay, it would have caused all sorts of copyright issues. So what they come up with, the $6 Million Man, was infinitely more exciting than just Cyborg. But yeah, back in those days, Cyborg was a bit of a revolutionary term.
Yeah, it was a lot better. Yeah, I agree. It was a lot better and a lot catchier term. The interesting thing, of course, when the $6 Million Man was made, all of these books were rebranded as $6 Million Man tie-in. So they obviously made the creator a shit ton more money. If people collect first editions, which we've looked at before, I actually think this is a good one to pick up. You can pick up a first edition hardback of the pre-$6 Million Man version of this book for under $100 in excellent condition. And for something that such a iconic show is based on, they aren't going to be around at that price forever. They haven't shot up like some of the other books from the time, but I think they eventually will. You can see here, after the $6 Million Man came out, they started doing Cyborg, the book that inspired the $6 Million Man, and then slowly the artwork sort of went over to more the TV version. So you can see there's a series of paperbacks there, and the paperbacks all had original covers and all came out pre that, but they were sort of backwards branded to be Steve Austin in the red jumpsuit on the cover, because they're obviously going to sell a lot more. The interesting thing I think the artist who did the Choose Your Own Adventure books did these, because the covers are very, very similar to some of that stuff.
I find it interesting that with the Cyborg books, they've gone for I assume it's Steve Austin still, gone for the ripped shirt and the muscles and all the rest of it. Whereas in the, except for this one here, but in the $6 Million Man books, he's just wearing the red jumpsuit and is very, very ordinary. So clearly for the Cyborg, they had to try and sell it on the sex appeal of the guy rather than just the character. So it's an interesting sort of contrast. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of the fantasy books from that era do try and do that as well. It's not just the $6 million man that does that. It is, I guess, was eye-catching on the bookshelves.
Yep. Very cool.
And then again, you can see these are the same books and they get reprinted over and over to the point where they're just using stills from the movie as pictures that are selling the books. And the cyborg is almost totally dropped, and you've got like the $6 million man with the cyborg in tiny little letters underneath, and in some cases totally dropped altogether. And some of the earliest original merchandise is the code books and things like that are under the bottom there, the secret puzzle codes and train your android brain and bionic eye puzzles and things like that. And you can see, apart from the books, when they originally started merchandising this show, they really didn't know who the audience was and who was going to want this stuff. So the merchandising is absolutely all over the place. I guess they already had the books, so they could build on the audience from the books. But as you can see, they went in a lot of different directions, and they built that franchise as one of the biggest. I think at the time it was the biggest franchise based on a television series.
I like this one, Bionic Eye Rebus puzzles, as you said. So, but yeah, because it's the 70s, you got to smoke the wacky tobacco to sort of get a better indication as to what the hell it is you're looking at.
Now, we've looked at these before, and we've looked at other franchises, particularly June has some crackers, but some of the very first stuff that was released was coloring books. And you can see that's got the original Bionic Man logo, which was that almost, Star Wars stretching up type logo. And this was 1973, 1974, so way before Star Wars. And again, you do wonder, these were sort of James Bond for television movies, and they've got very kids colouring books for them. And I love the one, I found that one that's been coloured in apparently by Stephanie, where the Bionic Man is drinking a martini and casually looking down the top of the girl that he's sitting next to, which I thought is a great topic for a colouring book.
Well, maybe he's looking at the top thinking, I would have coloured that a different colour. With that in mind, I like the fact that, like, of all the images, you got the topless hunk picture here, but the next one, he's got the old blue turtleneck going on. It's like, yeah that's going to bring in the viewers and the buyers.
The other thing that's interesting, and we saw this on the previous books with the early merchandise, Lee Majors probably still isn't a household name. So if you look at the pictures, they've done an approximation of Lee Majors, but it isn't exactly him still. So that one with the jumpsuit, the blue top, you were saying, it looks a bit like Lee Marvin, and it looks a bit, but it's not exactly, because it hasn't really set and solidified in the public's mind what the Bionic Man actually looks like yet.
Yeah, exactly right. So, and it's very funny, Greg's talking about Stephanie. Wouldn't it be funny if, like, somebody like Stephanie would be a child when she did this? You would think probably now in her 50s or 60s. Imagine her watching this episode go, hey, that's me.
Yeah, that would be funny. I have seen before where people have tracked down on Facebook stuff they've found secondhand. The $6 Billion Man, the earlier stuff, again, I said, is all over the place. So we've got the early publicity stuff there. And then one of the earliest things I could find was a $6 Billion Man t-shirt transfer. And again, these were one of those things they could knock out relatively cheap. They just came on sheets of paper and you ironed them on. I don't know if anyone remembers doing that. But you've got, again, a lot of activity books for kids. So you've got the activity book and the amazing $6 Million Man dot-to-dot book. I couldn't find any internal pictures of that, but that would probably be quite groovy. You've got some publicity stills there, and the one I liked was him in the cockpit of the shuttle. And you've got the TV Week cover. So when it came out, there was a TV Week cover, and it's from that time in the 70s where the picture's still a bit trippy. So you've got like his picture and then the hand and then all the bionics inside the hand, which is quite a cool image.
Yeah, it is kind of groovy. I looked at the dot-to-dot thing up here, the dot-to-dot book. For those who remember, you had all the dots of the numbers, and you had to draw around and make a picture. So you got Steve Austin flying down on like with the parachute and that. I get that, and it's all like got the Switzerland sort of look. Why would they put a seagull in there? What's the deal with that?
Because, wherever you go, you whack a seagull, and it makes it more realistic.
Did the producer say, dude, it needs a seagull? We need the sea. Oh, crack me up. Love it. But yes, very, very cool. But it does bring out the whole adventure and excitement sort of thing going on there. Absolutely love it.
Yeah. So one of the first things that took off was $6 Million Man comics. Now, we've talked about comics in different franchises. We've had American comics and DC and Marvel and British comics with Countdown and TV21 and stuff like this. This is a different style of comics again, where some of the comics that came out for different TV and movie franchises were almost more like magazines. So they were magazine size, but they had comics inside, and some of them were color and some of them were black and white. And other ones in that did this was the Hulk, and they did it with Planet of the Apes, if anyone has any of those comics. The $6 Million Man did it as well. And this really surprised me because I've collected for years and years, and I don't think these were released in Australia because I've never seen any of these turn up locally when I've been going through collections. And they're particularly good because what I love with the comics that this era, sometimes the paintings on the cover were obviously done by an artist that wasn't from the comic book sort of circle, and then the comics inside were done by the comic book artists. And that means it almost has a sort of appeal to a more adult magazine to it. And the $6 Million ones were ones like that, where you have these amazing pictures of the exploits of Steve Austin, which you would never see on TV. I mean, him throwing around tigers and things like that. Although he did wrestle an alligator, which is on one of the comics, but it was a very dodgy one in the TV episode, not a realistic one that you see in the comic book picture.
I like this one from Gavin. How many people thought they were bionic while doing the puzzle books and just did it in slow motion? So he's like, "You still do that book? Yeah, I got to do it." I like this. I mean, I do like the picture. I don't like the fact that he's got a bloody what do you call it, a leopard or whatever up there. What do you call it, a jaguar? It's an American cat, huh?
Cougar or mountain lion.
Cougar, that'll do. Yeah. So the funny thing is, he's using the bionic arm on this side to hold it up, but he's got the human arm on that side holding it up. Wouldn't it be funny? Like he picks it up with one hand and goes, "Oh, I can't." The weight distribution's a bit out of whack, but it's a good picture, but definitely not PC by today's standards. But
one of the things you would probably remember in the TV series was obviously more expensive to do the special effects. So it was a rare episode where you saw his innards and all his arms and stuff. But the comics, they showed that all the time, and the artwork has that in a lot. So that makes them instantly appealing because they're showing something that's implied in the TV series, but not always shown. So it has that appeal of being bigger budget than the TV series actually is.
He also wondered too with the eyes. I mean, like if he's looking a long distance with one eye and he's just got the human eye on the other side, would that sometimes throw him into a bit of vertigo? He's just going, "Whoa, Jesus!" I was seeing 100 miles this way, but only like 30 feet that way. It's like, anyway, let's not worry about the logic as was mentioned earlier on. Yeah.
And here's some more of the comics. I couldn't find much original art, but there is some of it out there in collections. So there's a cover there, and you can see the cover next to it after it's been inked and colored. Now, the comics were sold all around the world, and there was different adaptations. I do like El Hombre Nuclear, which is obviously a Latin version of it, where he's the nuclear man. And then there's other versions of the comics there. Some of them on the bottom left, you can see they went back to very comic book looking amongst this run of amazing paintings. And the one I was talking about there is the second one from the left, where he's fighting a crocodile or an alligator. You can see in other ones he's doing the bending the steel girders and jumping out of helicopters and all those kind of things that are easier to do in comic book media than they would be in the TV series. They did do a recent Bionic Woman update. It would be interesting to see what they could do with current technology to do maybe a movie or a big budget version of the Bionic Man now.
Be easy. In fact, it'll be too easy. That's the problem. I mean, back then it was really revolutionary. It was all done with trick photography, so you don't actually physically see a lot of the stuff going on. He'd be bending steel bars, and as we've said, he's a bionic arm in one hand and human hand in the other side. He couldn't physically do it. But back then it was revolutionary. It was different. It was unique, and of course, it sucked the audience in. By today's standards, it'd just be like, we've seen it all before. So that's the problem with in the modern world, where something that seems like a good idea has been done multiple times in the past, and you could probably go back and go, okay, $6 Million Man is where they come up with that idea, and it's sort of gone forward since then. And of course, people just go, you know what, it's just not worth it. But you never know. Unless you can produce a really good concept, a good story, that'd be the way to go. Very, very cool.
And of course, you've made it when you start getting parodies of the actual TV series on different shows, and of course in the print media, they always had the Mad and Cracked magazines. So they got away with stuff I don't know if they'd get away with now. I guess it's Mad and Cracked. But they had the $6 Million Man parody, but with the Bionic Woman, they changed it into the Moronic Woman. And I just think the way things are now, they probably couldn't do that. And you read some of the panels, and I won't read them, but basically the gist of it is a lot of it is like, oh, you've had $6 million put into you by the government. You have to be really careful. And they're like, what, of the foreign spies? They're like, no, the American taxpayer. They're totally pissed with that much money being wasted. So total mad, cracked sort of humor. And you can see it's a Christmas episode. And what are they giving each other? Batteries.
Yeah. I love the batteries. And the fact that hers says ever ready, you can probably interpret that a couple of different ways. But he's got the Duracell, and of course, the intention being that Duracell will last longer. So yes, indeed, there's a bit of a subtext there, but I thought that was actually kind of funny. Yes,
the interesting thing, and this is true, they never said how much the Bionic Woman cost because they didn't want to say one cost more than the other, so they just always left that as a mystery.
Well, they could have said, "Oh, we got all the prices cheap." It's like got them on, instead of producing them in the US, we got them from China, and we've got sent over from Ronnie, and it's like a bargain basement. It didn't look like they did in the pictures, so we stuck them in the Bionic Woman. But you are right.
You know what happened? They gave her 2 right arms, and she's the one that made the banner for that Netflix show.
I love it. That's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, very, very cool.
And the last lot of comics and magazines adaptation, as we're looking more into magazines, I think the 2 coolest ones there are the $6 Million Man on the Planet of the Apes. Now, I have not read that, and I don't know what happens in that, but I do want to track that down and find it out. And they also had the Amazing Spider-Man crossover with the Bionic Man, which is one of those crossovers I didn't know happened, but the Bionic Man seems to be like throwing Spider-Man and getting the better of Spider-Man. Anyone who's watched the show, I do go on about the famous Monsters horror magazine, and when they had the Sasquatch and Bigfoot, Bionic Man got a cover of Steve Austin and the Bigfoot fighting it out. And then a lot of the other magazines from the time are sort of very iconic and have great covers of Steve Austin. And you've got one there I slipped in, which is more of a modern one, and it's where Jamie and the Bionic Man get it together, and it happens in comics. So you have a run of comics where they're together, and it took, I think, the 3rd or 4th reunion telemovie for it to happen on the screen.
I love the idea of the Steve Austin with the Planet of the Apes. I did not know about that one. That's a really bizarre sort of like pairing. But of course, he's an astronaut, so you can sort of do it and get away with it and make it work.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's a ripper. If they sent him up after one of the ships to see what happened, and he wound up on the Planet of the Apes, that would have been a great episode of the Bionic Man.
Yeah, get your stinking paws off my bionics, you damn dirty ape. Love it.
Yeah, and then I'm not looking too much at the modern merchandise, but the comics are still quite a big hit, and I think the art for the recent ones is still quite good. And there's a run of them who have been written by Kevin Smith, for those people who are interested in who's doing them. Again, they kind of keep that 70s feel with the artwork, but they've obviously updated it, so you've got some almost Terminator imagery with it as well.
So I tend to think $6 Million Man was a product of its time, and it worked because it was in that time. Now we overanalyze everything, as we were saying about, how would his spine handle it, and his left arm, right arm, all this sort of stuff. Back then, you just accepted it, you took it because you'd never seen it before. And I think there's an advantage of having something that comes out and you go, this is really unique, really dial into it. It's working for me. And, 50 years later, it just can't be replicated at the same level of success because it's the uniqueness is now missing. And that's why I think it was such a successful show, and it did really well for itself. And as you said, I mean, I personally loved Oscar Goldman. I thought he was a fantastic character, and these guys are really serious about what they're trying to do. So, yeah, had a lot of things going for him, which was particularly cool.
Yeah. And then British magazine Look In was the sort of home of the Bionic Man in the UK, and for the entire time that the show was being run there, it was very popular, and it got covers every couple of issues. And you can see you've got the Bionic Man and you've got the Bionic Woman that have covers, and you also get Oscar on a couple of them, and sometimes they share covers, so it's the only time you're ever going to see the Bionic Woman with the Tomorrow People and stuff like that. But it obviously was a big show. Farrah Fawcett, who became Farrah Fawcett Major when she married Lee Majors, met him on the set of Bionic Man, and she was on it 4 times, and she played 4 different characters. So you can just imagine behind the scenes him going, "Well, she was all right. Can we get her back for another episode?" And 4 episodes into it, and they were married.
Yeah, the ratings go up whenever she appears. Yes, very, very groovy. And I do like this cover down here where even Oscar is actually the prominent character of the 3. I thought that was kind of cool. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
good
very
to
good.
see. And of course, any show or any franchise that's popular in the 70s and 80s got sets of cards. We've moved off comics. And the Bionic Man was no different. So there were different sets of the $6 Million Man cards. They are quite rare, and I have seen them locally, and I've actually found them quite boring. And I think the reason I find them boring is the colors they used at the border of the cards make them all look washed out. And they never really had a lot of action scenes in them. There was a lot of headshots and things like that. And when you're getting the set of cards, it's good to get the headshots of the characters once, but then you want to see him fighting Bigfoot and jumping out of windows and in space and stuff like that. And for me, it seemed like they really missed an opportunity on doing an amazing set of cards.
Yeah, that would have been limited by what they could do, because if he's holding up something heavy, doesn't mean that's going to be an exciting picture, because you don't physically see it actually occurring. You're just seeing he's holding up a railroad track, and you go, "Is that exciting as a card?" I don't know, maybe. So, but yes, by default, because it's set in contemporary society, it's not like your Battlestars and Star Wars, where every picture is fantastical and out, and it's something that doesn't exist in real life. $6 Million Man was set on Earth, and that would, by default, would make it a bit more awkward. You see pictures of Oscar with a pen, and pictures of Oscar on the phone, and pictures of Oscar like he's just a dude.
Yeah. Well, like I was saying, some of the stories probably wouldn't have been very much go-to make cards out. The Bionic Man goes and like breaks up a bootlegger operation, so you just have pictures of him tipping booze down the sink and stuff like that. So it is interesting with what they were limited to what they could do. But I would have still had the Death Probe and the Abominable Snowman and Bigfoot and the Fembots and stuff like that.
Once again, it's actually the bad guys who make the cards sell, not the good guys, which is actually quite interesting, because the bad guys in this case, as you just mentioned, are all completely unique and different, the sci-fi side. So yeah.
The other thing that's interesting, when I put this show together, right at the start of the show, you saw that picture of John Saxon taking his mask off, right? That didn't exist. I had to make that for the show because there is no picture. So I took a picture of his mask off and edited it over the top. Back then, I guess when you're making cards, that technology just wasn't there.
Well, that's a very good point, actually. And you do wonder if they took the idea from Westworld or in reverse. So, yes, very, very cool. All right. So, when you want some chow, have some lunch, you've got to take your $6 Million Man lunchbox with you.
And this is incredible because they've branded it $6 Million Man. So what's Lee Marvin doing busting through that tin down in the bottom center there? Or it's very weird how they sometimes got Lee Major spot on, and sometimes it looks absolutely nothing like him. And I do wonder if that was to do with when the original ones came out, he wasn't a household name, so they just thought they could whack any strong-looking man on. And then after that, when he became successful, they changed it. But I think these lunch boxes are particularly cool because you can see when they've depicted stuff, especially on the sides of them, they've taken amazing scenes from different movies. So you have got what they should have put in the cards, where he's fighting Bigfoot and wrestling with sharks and underwater, and then he's throwing massive boulders that are bigger than him, or he's fighting with Maskatron. And then you've got the Bionic Woman who's teaching at school, which I think is really hilarious because you've got the $6 Million Man who's like almost running someone through with a tree in the top one and then fighting people. And then you've got Jamie Summers who's like teaching in front of a blackboard with a American flag behind her. So it really just so the different mindset that they had between what little girls wanted and what little boys wanted back then.
It's a very good observation, isn't it? It's like, one extreme to the other, so which is completely bizarre. Rusky Babe said they did a revival of the Bionic Woman several years ago, and I'm going to take a stab and say it didn't work and it failed a miserable death. And the problem is there are so many sci-fi and superhero shows around, current or classic, instead of the 70s when there was just only a couple on at the time. That's exactly right. Everything old is new again. As we said, some of the biggest franchises at the moment all existed 40 to 50 years ago, if not even longer than that. But yes, very, very cool. But at least the lunchboxes are colourful. I will give them that, even if they don't, some of them look nothing like good old Steve himself.
The other thing I found interesting was the Bionic Man records, because apart from the soundtrack, and you've got the soundtrack album, most of them were the comic book records where you follow a story along with the pictures, and most of them had 4 stories on the 145, which must have made for really short stories to squeeze that much on. But he used to be a tradition at Christmas, and there's like 3 Bionic Man Christmas records. So someone in the recording industry decided we're going to make this a tradition and pump out a Bionic Man Christmas record every year for kids to put under the Christmas tree. And I've never seen them. I've seen maybe the soundtrack one with the picture from the TV series locally, but the other ones are quite hard to get, and they often don't survive so well because when you have a soundtrack record, it's usually for adults and they look after it. When you have a kids record, they whack it on and play it time after time and pull the needle off and scratch it around, and before long it's unplayable. There was a lot of $6 Million Man records, so it's probably quite hard to get a good mint set of those.
I think the answer to this question is pretty obvious that the answer they didn't do it, but it certainly sounds like a good idea. A Ken and Barbie Bionic set. Would that have
No, they didn't. That is an iconic set that they could do. And the thing about that, you could imagine Ken and Barbie just not changing them much, and they sort of work, don't they?
Yep, I reckon that's actually a very good because they're both male female characters, and obviously it would and they pair them all up, and it'd be kind of cool. So yeah, Rusky Babes, you're onto a good idea, old son. Get a what do you call it, a Kickstarter campaign happening, and you should be good to go. This one I did like, and I have seen these before in my time. And Rusky Babes, who's a bit of a model builder, will go a little bit apeshit over this because it is model kits.
Yeah, and I thought these were particularly good kits as well, because often when they make kits from a show or something, they're not very well thought out. But I thought each one of these was actually really good because it fits in with the character, and it also is dynamic and an amazing little scene all on their own. So you've got, of course, the motorbike, where of course the model company has taken an existing bike and added the $6 Million Man, but all the other ones are unique. So you've got him like throwing a gorilla, and I don't know if that's from an episode, probably not. The one where he's kicking down at a door is from an episode. I remember that he would run down a corridor and then in slow motion jump up and punch a door down. The genius thing about that is the door is crumbling, but Steve Austin is held in midair by the way the model is put together. You've got the traditional wrestling, the alligator, which was again from an episode, but I think it was in the water when he did it. And the other one, which I hadn't seen, was the bionic repair station. And you've got Jamie Summers there with one of her legs partially removed and all the spare parts and someone working on her. And that's just a really nice little model kit you could put together and have on your shelf.
So once again, Steve is in all the action scenes and Jamie's in a repair shop. So with Steve fighting all the animals, I would not be surprised if a lot of that was inspired by Tarzan images.
Yeah.
They said, well, he needs to fight something. So they've said, oh, yeah, well, Tarzan used to fight like, lions and tigers and bears and all sort of business. So they just taken Tarzan out effectively and put Steve in. And they said, that looks good because he's holding the jaws open of the crocodile, right?
Yeah.
But once again, he can only hold it up with one hand. The other hand can't do that. So it I reckon they've stolen the idea of that because it's like, oh, what else are we going to do? So fighting big ass animals. Yeah. I mean,
well,
of course,
when you think about it, Jack, Steve Austin's a spy that works for the government. How many times can they contrive episodes where he has to wrestle a gorilla or fight an alligator? It's not too often, is it?
Yeah, exactly right. So, but when I was looking at that, I was thinking, yeah, where would they have gotten the idea? Oh, yeah, probably Tarzan. So, yeah, very cool.
And then we've got, we move over to jigsaws, and jigsaws were always a big thing with popular franchises that did well. And there were a lot of jigsaws, and I've just put some of the highlights. There's the poster for some of the jigsaws there on the left, and then there's the Whitman's British jigsaws down the middle. There's 4 different ones, but I only put 3 up because they were kind of very similar. And again, they're not the same artwork, but they're the same kind of scenes, what we saw on the lunchbox, where in this one, it doesn't look like he's wrestling a shark. It looks like he's swum up to the shark and he's just tapping on the side of it to see if anyone's at home. And I don't know if you'd remember these jigsaws. Do you remember the ones that used to come in tins?
Yeah.
There was all different franchises, but I did have a $6 Million one at one stage. That was one of the few pieces of merchandise I do remember seeing in Australia. And you could get a lot of different jigsaws in tins. at the time. It was kind of a gimmick. You don't really see that now. And then there's an American one again where he's sort of fighting with Bigfoot, and that was a very cool one that I had never seen. So if you were into your puzzles, you were quite well served with the Bionic Man franchise.
Yeah, where he's swinging up to the shark, you think, I know, is he going to stick his hand there and look for the girl who got chewed up at the start of Jaws? So, yes, indeed, he died.
The other thing you've got to remember, it's like the producers. I mean, the producers of the show wouldn't, but when they make these things, the producers of the Jigsaw, they don't take into account that he isn't a robot. He needs to breathe, but he's underwater there. And, if the shark turns around and bites his head off, game over, because he's only got bionic limbs. So
either that, or he said, chew off the other arm, because I need bionics in the left arm now, so I can actually hold on to all these frigging cougars and gorillas and all that other stuff. Let's not worry about that, shall we?
Yes. Shark repellent.
Yes, exactly. At least in the TV show, they didn't do anything as silly as that. Oh, just it's like Aquaman all of a sudden, so he's good to go. This looks pretty groovy, I've got to say.
Yeah, so there's a few different games. We did an episode on board games and we looked at some of these. And since then, I found a new version, the Diagnostic Bionic, which is Bionic Crisis, but it's the French version. I think the French version is actually a nicer cover than the standard version because it's got more color to it. These games are good because we've talked about it before. Usually with a franchise, they just whack the Flintstones on snakes and ladders and call it a Flintstones game. But the Bionic Men games actually were all show sort of related. So one of them, you get different missions and then you play around the build the game to try and complete the missions that are from the show, and like in the show doing different things and using different abilities. And then the Bionic Crisis one is basically almost like trying to complete circuits to get energy through to the Bionic Man, and it's a different game again. So they actually were quite good games that were relevant to the show.
I can just imagine you play this with your friends, you roll a 6, and you pick your piece up, and instead of just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you go. You'd be chucking the game to the shithouse in the first couple of minutes because everybody would be doing it.
But it makes it more fun.
Hey?
It makes it more fun.
Oh, yeah, and frustrating at the same time. Yeah, definitely.
Now we're going on to what was probably the most successful thing that was associated with the Bionic Man, and that was Kenner's toy promotion that did go for years and was very successful for a boy's toy that was action figures, because up until that point, the main action figures were Action Man and G.I. Joe at that sort of 12-inch scale. Star Wars figures had not come along, and there weren't many figures at all that were that scale. So most of the figures were Barbie scale, and toy companies tried over and over to get a franchise that boys would jump on board with and collect. G.I. Joe was the most popular because it was military, but there weren't many other ones. So Steve Austin really did break the mold for Kenner, and they did amazingly well with it. And when Star Wars came along, they could have gone down this route for Star Wars as well. And of course, we did see the 12-inch Star Wars figures, but we all know that the phenomenally successful Kenner series was the small action figures. But you can see how well they tied in the Bionic Man to what kids were doing. They had comic book pages and adverts that actually were unique comics talking to the kids about why you should get them and what the different accessories do. And I think this is great because before there's the internet and TV and all that kind of thing, you'd see the Bionic Command Center and you go, what the hell is that? It looks like a big tube or something. But then when you read your favorite comic and you've got Steve Austin going, well, this is my diagnostics table, and you put the doll in this and it can attach to this, and then you can put it all together and turn it into a rocket and blast off. Suddenly that toy has a lot more playability because of the imagery you've put in a kid's head through the comic book that you're reading. So that's quite ingenious, where you've got a franchise that uses different media to sell different products to the same sort of age group and the same target audience. And Bionic Man was probably one of the earliest ones to do that very well.
Yeah, one of the restrictions they would have had, obviously, is the fact they only had one character to work with. Right, so you can't imagine like an Oscar Goldman character in doing different, like at his desk and on the phone and holding the briefcase would have been a big seller. So they've said, okay, we've got this main dude, but he's it. And unless you do some of the villains along the way, I reckon years later, if the world was reversed, if the show had to come out in the 80s, for example, they would have said, oh yeah, we can really expand the idea of what we can merchandise regarding not just him, but all the other characters around them and put them in these situations to make it work. But at the time, I reckon they're thinking, we've only got the one guy, and there is a limit to what you can do with him. And And I don't think they even did character figures of anybody else. Is that right? Because as we can see here, we've just got Steve, and that's it. Is that right?
Well, no, down the bottom there.
Oh, yeah, got Oscar. I just realized, as soon as I said that, I just realized you do have Oscar down the bottom there. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So they did Oscar, and they gave him an accessory you couldn't probably do now. He had a exploding bomb suitcase, what every terrorist needs. So you got this accessory with him just to make him, I guess, a bit more exciting than the dude that sits at his desk. And they did do his desk and the operation center in this series. But it was one of those things where they did sell the Bionic Man over and over. And what they would do, they would update it. So they changed the G.I. Joe Kung Fu grip to his Bionic grip. And then he could do different things, and different versions of the figure would do different things with the accessories they had. So that's right. One of the most famous things that they did for this was they put a telescopic lens in the back of his head so kids could look through it and have bionic vision. And they did the same thing with the Boba Fett figure. So they obviously recycled a lot of the stuff they did with the Bionic Man. The interesting thing I find about the Bionic Man is when they went for the color to uniformly advertise all of the Bionic Man stuff, they went with Barbie pink. And I guess it works. But it is a surprise for a boys range that they didn't go with steel blue or black or something like that. And it is very of its time, and it is very of that line now, that when you see it, you know you're looking at Bionic Man stuff. But it is a bit unusual for the time where boys were blue and girls were pink, that they did a boys line in pink.
I think it's interesting too that with the Steve character, they just do him the red jumpsuit. They didn't think of putting him in anything else. They didn't even cross their minds to do that. I think that's probably a lost opportunity. Collect them all, 6 different variants of exactly the same figure but different clothing.
They did add different clothes you could buy separately, but all of the Bionic Men that came as the figure just came in the standard red jumpsuit. Some of them came with a flight helmet as well. So it was like they used the girls' Barbie modeling, where Barbie comes out and then you get all the different fashions that she can use. But obviously they don't call it Fashion Steve Austin. They have different missions. Different missions
but
for him.
I mean, he wears different outfits in the show. They could easily have just dressed him up and put him in a suit. You can put him in his normal clothes, just something different, just to add a bit of variety. Because in the end, as we know, once you introduce variants, people go, well, okay, well, I've already got the red jumpsuit version. Oh, they produced a version where you got this, or unless, as was the case, you just buy the clothes separately. That was a very common, especially with Barbie, they did that. So you only had one figure, one actual toy, and you just redressed it with all the different clothes, which is a great idea, but of course you're not selling as many. So anyway, it doesn't matter. It was a missed opportunity. All you got was the red jumpsuit, done and dusted, and there you go. Now, if you were my age, you would definitely remember this. I remember playing this because it was one of the coolest things around. It was the old pinball machine.
Yeah, so the pinball machine came out in the 70s. And I guess all the really big franchises did have pinball machines. This is one of the more forgotten ones. And I've got to say, I think I've only ever seen one locally. I don't know where you played it or where you saw it, possibly the same one, because back in the day when these were around, pinball machines were kind of, you'd get one unique one in one pinball parlor and everyone would go to that pinball parlor to play it because they were so expensive to import. You didn't see a lot of them around. It is a particularly nice looking cabinet. The middle there, I've merged 2 pictures, one with it lit up and one with it off, so you can kind of see the colors of the cabinet on the right, and then you can see it lit up with the neons on the left. I also found one of the original advertising brochures for it in the bottom left there that sort of talks about all the text and things you can do on the machine. It was kind of released at a time just before all the innovative electronics came into pinball machines. So it is a standard pinball machine. And I did find other pinball machines that basically used exactly the same layout, but did different franchises. And a lot of them were generic. So there was an Indian one that I found with the Cowboys and Indians that was the same layout. It was just different graphics on it. Would you like one of these in your spare room, Dags?
No, I wouldn't. 2 things that I always remember. The fact you could play 6 people instead of 4. Right, yep. That was pretty unique. So you could be there for friggin' hours if you had 6 people. And the key thing that this machine had that no other had, and it's hard to see in the picture, but in between the flippers, you might be thinking, okay, I mean, the picture's a bit skewy. Why is there such a large gap between the flippers? Because there was a post that used to pop up in the middle. So you could actually have a situation where the post would pop up and the ball would not go down through the middle of in between the flippers. It would actually just sit there, right? Yeah. And you could actually flip it from this side to that side, so you could aim for these targets on over here. And it was a very innovative thing. And of course, if the post was down, the chances of losing your ball was a lot higher. So wherever possible, you always wanted that post to go up. But I never saw any other machine that used that feature. So it was just one of those things. But yeah, I was a big fan of $6 Million Man, the penny machine back in my day. So yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. So again, for me, it's just very old memories. It wasn't one I saw around much.
Yeah, exactly right. Now I think we're sort of heading into what is some very limited Bionic Woman stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I was showing kind of here how the Bionic Woman and the Bionic Man, they did very similar things. And as we were saying earlier, exactly the same toy, very different thing for guys and girls. So you had the $6 Million Man Mission Center, and we're looking at those sort of plastic things on the bottom there. And it's Jamie Summers' sort of fashion pad. So you had the same toy and they just rebranded it and used it as different things. The other thing I think I said earlier on eBay, you see a lot of these with broken limbs. And at the top there, you can see it's got like extra legs and you could buy extra arms for different missions. Some of the dolls or some of the figures had it so you could pop the arms off and some of them didn't. Now this can be an issue if you have one of the ones that has the bionic grip and the arms don't pop up because of the mechanism inside, and then you get one of your relatives for your birthday gives you a set of extra arms and legs that are much cooler than the ones that go with it. So you go, how do these things come off? Crunch, crunch, and you've just busted your toy and you can't fit the new legs on it at all.
But don't worry, dude, you have the technology to rebuild him.
Yes, better, faster, stronger, but
and worth more.
Yeah, it is one of those things where you would think that all over the package you would put, you need this version of the doll to pop the legs off and pop the arms back on and stuff like that. So that's one of the reasons. For a while I wondered, why are so many of these got the arms and legs ripped off? More than most of the figures from the same time. And then when I saw that they had these extra arms and legs that popped onto some versions of the doll and not others, then you realize, oh, that's why kids actually did it thinking they were going to be able to play with their toy but just broke it.
Exactly. Now Rusky Bo said Janet's his wife was terrified of the Venus probe, and here is the Venus probe.
Yeah, we're not talking about Bigfoot either. So these are two of the villains that actually made it into toy form. Bigfoot's interesting. He wasn't a real Bigfoot. He was a bionic Bigfoot made by aliens. So there you go. It just ticks all the boxes, doesn't it? But the Venus probe was one of the last toys that was released for the $6 Million Man line. And it is consequently one of the rarest toys, not just in the $6 Million line, but from the 70s for people to get. So they used to go for a couple of thousand. Now they're pushing more than 5,000 to get a boxed Venus probe. So if you're collecting the $6 Million Man, you almost need to take out a loan to get that last one. The Bigfoot is an interesting one. It always turns up broken. It has it has panels on it that expose its bionics in the chest. And basically by flicking it open, you almost can instantly break it as well. And now they're old toys and they've gone brittle. Best not to play with them at all. The Bigfoot looks suspiciously like another fur character that came out by Kenner as well. And the Bigfoot doll is very, very reminiscent of the original Chewbacca 12-inch doll. They're about the same size, made from the same material, and the only difference is Chewbacca doesn't have bionics inside.
And yeah, exactly right. So very cool. And this is our last picture.
Yep, so we could have done a whole show just on the stuff that Kenner released. There's a few interesting ones there. If you look at the CB headset, that was an actual radio that they brought out that's very cool. It looked like Steve Austin's radio when he's in jets and stuff like that. That was actually repurposed as one of the very first Star Wars toys. So Luke Skywalker's headset on the Millennium Falcon, and it was just luck that they had something that looked like it. So everyone knows Star Wars was very... the toys were caught with their pants down and didn't get it out very fast, but that one they could because they already had the toy. That is a picture from an episode. Now, Series 4, I don't know if you know this, Dags, the entire Series 4, he spouted a porn star mustache. I don't actually remember him having a mustache, but for one entire series he did. And in that series, he went into a toy shop, and in the background, there is the Bionic Man toy in the show. They didn't mention it, but they would have known what they were doing. So yes, there is the Bionic Man toy there. So that's very, very a knowing nod to the audience. That wasn't done as an ad or anything. That was just in an episode of the show when they went into the toy shop. Down the bottom, you can see the opportunity they missed with Steve Austin. They didn't miss with Jamie Summers, where they released all the different costumes they could for little girls to collect and play with. And it was a particularly long and successful line. So you can see there was different versions. You can see there's the spacesuit up the top corner there. And then there were different versions of clothes you could buy for Steve as well. You can see on the top right there is the OSI headquarters. And that was it the Office for Science Investigation, I think? They all have something like that. And that was where, if you wanted to get a boring play set for Oscar to sit down and look at world maps, they actually released that too. So they really did do an extensive range. And for a 12-inch boys toy, there aren't a lot of toys that release this much stuff. So we can see that over the life of the show, which was basically 10 years if you include the telly movies and the mini series and then all the different series, they released a lot of stuff. And if you were a Bionic Man fan, you could get something for every birthday and for Christmas and still be left wanting more.
Yeah, with the Bionic Woman, they clearly got inspired by the Barbie dolls, and then she probably ended up wearing all these outfits in the dolls that she never even wore in the shows. I did find this kind of interesting. So we mentioned this earlier. Rusky Babe said about the Bionic mustache, right? Guy said the mustache was terrible, and of course he's come back and said, they didn't CGI CGI the mustache out back then, as they did with Superman in the Justice League film. So there you go, something for everyone. The $6 Million Man is definitely a TV show that's got its place in history, and it's a damn good place. And I think it has a really good rewatching value because of the fact that it took it seriously. And even though you may not have had not enough bad guys to keep him going, these days you'd be thinking of all these great ideas that some evil scientist has produced an army of robots and all this sort of thing, and Steve has to go and beat him up with his really, really cool arm. But they didn't think of that stuff back then. Probably didn't have the money for it. So that would have been a sight to see. So Bigfoot was the best, one of the best bad guys they could come up with. So a bionic Chewbacca, so to speak. So there you go. Mr. Aaron, what do you reckon, old son? That's the end of the show.
I know. I look at that and I go, gee, I wish I had a Steve Austin doll. I'd like to add that to my collection.
You've had one in the store, though, haven't you? You had one and it's sold pretty quickly, eh?
Yeah, they go really fast and we get asked for them. I have had a few, but now I've looked at all the merchandise. I'm like, that is really a nice, iconic toy, and having a nice one would probably go in any sci-fi collection quite well.
Yeah, with a bit of luck, the show will reappear somewhere, either on a streaming service or on like your 9 Nows and 10 Goes and all that other stuff. So, but it's definitely something that did very well for itself at the time, and people still revere it greatly, which is absolutely fantastic. Anyway, that finishes us up for the night. Don't forget to check in next Wednesday when Aaron is on his own. The solo dude, I love it. It was going to be spectacular. So if you're sick to death of listening to me talk, you won't have to worry about it because I'm not going to be around. So final words from you, Mr. Aaron, before we sign off.
I don't run the shows, Dags does. So if it's all the complete stuff up, just go gentle on me.
Yeah, well, that's all right. All my job is just to push buttons. So there you go. All right, well, we're going to leave you to it. As always, leave your $6 million. Well, you could almost call it the $60 million man now because he's worth that much. Collectables mint in their boxes.
Or rip it off the card with a no.
Everybody knows, don't they? All right, we'll leave you to it, guys. Have a good one. And I will see you in 2 weeks, and we'll see Aaron next week. Okay, take guys.
Good night, guys. See you. Bye.